Chapter 23:15. The generals remained silent. The atmosphere in the tent was as if it was frozen, making people uncomfortable. Looking at the silence of the generals, Yuchi was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He had good intentions in reprimanding that hothead this time. If his words were heard by Luowa and the others, that hothead would die immediately. Even the people present would not be able to escape suspicion. He immediately said loudly, "I will repeat it once more. His Majesty Sky Emperor is not a heavenly demon. Absolutely not. Whoever has such suspicions in the future will be beheaded in public." Suddenly, a voice full of ridicule came from the sky. This voice said, "He's not a heavenly demon. Then you are. Ha! You big idiot! Heavenly demon lackey!" Everyone's eyes suddenly darkened, as if the whole sky suddenly turned dark. When he looked up, he discovered that an extremely majestic golden dragon had appeared in the sky without him noticing. That golden dragon's body was thousands of feet long. It circled and danced in the air, its huge eyes staring at the camp in the rain. Suddenly, it shook its head and tail and let out a dragon roar that shook the world. Divine beast! Another divine beast appeared in the world? After the phoenix, there was actually a dragon this time. It was also that shocking. All the generals were stunned. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the golden dragon swayed and turned around. Suddenly it roared, "Yuan Tianming! Your grandpa is here! Quickly wash your neck and wait for me to chop you, heavenly demon cub!" With a whoosh, it rose high into the sky and flew towards Xiadanqiong. Over there, the same phoenix roar suddenly sounded, and a huge phoenix rose up to meet the golden dragon. It laughed loudly. "Wahahaha! The bottom is finally here!" The golden dragon flew into a rage, spitting saliva in all directions. "Bullshit!" Just as everyone was dumbfounded, the dragon and phoenix suddenly began to fight in the sky. Both of them were extremely vicious, as if they were mortal enemies that could not be allowed to live under the same sky. For a moment, the roar of the dragon and the sound of the wind shook the world, and sand and stones flew for hundreds of miles. Thousands of feet long divine beasts fighting each other, it was simply a magnificent spectacle. But didn't they say that dragons and phoenixes were auspicious? Why were the dragon and phoenix fighting each other today, and fighting so fiercely? Everyone's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. At this moment, someone suddenly shouted, "Place your bets, place your bets. Let's see who will win. I bet on AOAO." Everyone turned their heads to look and saw that a few more young men had appeared out of thin air. The person who was speaking looked like a hooligan, and his entire body was filled with a rogue aura. Beside him, there was a fellow whose image was not much better than his. He crossed his arms and said with a look of disdain, "Is there even a need to gamble? AOAO will definitely win. How can that damned bird be AOAO's match?" A voice that sounded extremely majestic and mighty said, "Two shameless people, fighting now. Do you want me to slash them both with my saber?" A female voice said, "Why are you getting angry with them? Your opponents should be Amotianji and Gu Duxing, right? Playing with them will only lower our status. Even if we take a step back, we will have to catch Xia Dan Qiong and beat him up. Only then will we barely qualify, right?" As he spoke, another man and woman appeared. That woman was dressed in black, but her curves were exquisite and charming. Other than being a little cold, she was simply a rare beauty. And that man just stood in the air, but he gave people the feeling that he was the one who lifted the sky with one shoulder. So majestic. The next moment, a piercing sword light came, intentionally or unintentionally cutting a space crack in the air. A cold voice said, "Who wants to fight with me?" A man in black, like a lonely sword, appeared brazenly in the sky, as if he wanted to split the sky into two. The people below were all shocked. Experts. Each and every one of these youths was an expert. When did the Heaven Imperial Court have so many young saints? It was too shocking for such a group of people to stand together. All of them were so strong and yet so young. These people attacked each other verbally, but when their gazes met, they could see the passion in each other's eyes, as well as an inexplicable surprise that could almost make one's heart ache. When Xie Danqiong saw these people coming together, he was wild with joy. Looking at the familiar figures that kept appearing in the sky, he almost had the urge to cry out loud. "Brothers, you are all finally here!" The brothers attacked and belittled each other, but their eyes were all sparkling. An incomparably familiar feeling arose spontaneously. It was as if they had returned to the Heaven Imperial Court, those days when they were together. When they were happy, they sang and roared together. When the wind blew, they rode together in the martial world. Those years that had passed came back to their memories so vividly. The faint sound of wind and thunder came from the horizon. Suddenly, a flying boat appeared at the end of the sky. Then, another boat appeared, and another one. There were a total of nearly 20 flying boats, with the momentum of toppling mountains and overturning seas, whistling all the way. That momentum was really like a king descending to the world. In just a moment, a flying boat had already entered their sight. On the flying boat, there were 2 big golden words engraved on it. "Heavenly Soldier." The brothers looked at the flying boat with fiery eyes, and there was uncontrollable excitement on their faces. "Boss." The flying boat flew across the sky, gradually approaching, and finally stopped in the sky above the camp, slowly circling. All the soldiers on Yuan Tianjia's side looked nervous, as if they were facing a great enemy. How could they not be shocked? If these nearly 20 flying boats were also filled with explosives like the crazy one last time, even if only half of them were hidden with gunpowder, when they really exploded, the destructive power would be at least 10 times more than the last time. Under that kind of terrifying power, not a single one of the tens of millions of people here would be left alive. Basically, no one would be lucky enough to survive. Even no one would be able to leave behind a complete corpse. This wouldn't be that crazy too, right? The 2 great sky demons, Iluowe and Yuan Tianjia, stood outside the camp, looking at the flying boats circling in the sky. Their faces were full of solemnity. Now they could already be sure that these flying boats were definitely not owned by the local forces of Mo Yuntian. Moreover, they were definitely not reinforcements for their side. In other words, these flying boats were strong reinforcements for Xie Danqiong and Mu Tsanglan. Looking at the dragon and phoenix in the sky, looking at those unfamiliar but high-spirited young experts, Yuan Tianjia said in a heavy voice, "This Xie Danqiong, what kind of background does he have? Where did he get so many outside friends? Moreover, all of them are young men with tyrannical strength. I don't understand," Iluowa said. "Or they were sent by a force connected to Mu Tsanglan." Yuan Tianjia snorted. "Absolutely impossible. Mu Tsanglan is such a bag of old bones. How much weight does he have? How much background does he have? This emperor knows very well. He definitely does not have this kind of face. Also, how old are these people? Prime Minister, you are getting more and more lazy to use your brain recently." Iluoyue's face was embarrassed. Of course, that sentence just now was just for fun. With Iluoyue's brain, how could she not know that Mu Tsanglan definitely could not have such friends? If he had such strong reinforcements, would he have been so miserably defeated before? If it were not for the fact that Yuan Tianjia needed a large number of souls to recover, he could have attacked with all his strength a few days ago and completely destroyed Mu Tsanglan and Xie Danqiong's forces. He never thought that victory was in his hands and planned to play a cat-and-mouse game, using a large number of souls to recover while he was at it. He had actually given the other side a chance to catch their breath. What little fire there was left was actually going to be reignited. Originally, with Yuan Tianjia and Iluoyue's shrewdness, even if they knew that their judgment was wrong, they would not be sad and self-resentful. However, the arrival of these people really made them feel a huge pressure. These young people. Any one of them is a terrifying existence. Even if they are not enough now, they will be in the future. Yuan Tianjia looked at the people opposite him and said in a low voice. Iluowe did not speak. With their current cultivation at the peak of the Saint Realm, although the strength of these young fellows was not bad, it was still not enough. If they really fought with all their strength, they could kill one of them with one palm. However, the potential of these people was extremely terrifying. In the future, they would definitely become a serious problem. Both of them were great people with long lives and deep experience. They could be said to know everything in the world like the back of their hands. However, it was also because of this that they knew how terrifying these young people were. Thinking about how they were the best of the heavenly demon clan and had extremely high talent. Today, they had reached the peak of the world's cultivators. Even if they faced other monarchs, they might not have the word fear in their hearts. However, seeing these young people today, there was an inexplicable fear in their hearts. Thinking about what kind of cultivation they had when they were in their 20s? When they really thought about this question, Yuan Tianjie and Iluowa both fell silent. The coldness in their hearts grew even stronger. After a long time, Yuan Tianjie finally asked, "Luowa, when you were their age, what were you doing?" A bitter expression appeared on Iluowa's face. "Your Majesty, this is really hard to say, Sai." He raised his head and said in a reminiscing tone, "At that time, I was only an advanced fledgling demon. I was already regarded as the new generation's genius by the whole clan. All the high-grade resources in the clan were all given to me. Moreover, I was also self-satisfied with my level, thinking that I was great. I really looked down on the world and had no regard for anything else. If it was the level of the Heaven Imperial Court, I would probably only be at the advanced Earth level. I'm ashamed, Sai." Chapter 23:16. Iluowa nodded. "The potential of these youths is really terrifying." Yuan Tianji's eyes were a little gloomy. He said slowly, "I'm afraid that these people will really become a group of purple tycoons in the future. If they really become fully fledged, I'm afraid that our clan will be in danger." Iluowa nodded in agreement. "How can we allow such a genius to grow? We might as well destroy him right here and now. If we can destroy them all, it will be our clan's great fortune." On the other side, under the joint command of Xie Danqiong and Mu Tsanlan, a large area was quickly cleared out for the flying boats to land. The flying boats circled and the first one finally landed. The dragon and phoenix in the sky stopped fighting and quickly landed. Then they turned into two youths. GMO, Luo Kadi, Gu Duxing and the others rushed over. Xie Danqiong's handsome face, which had always been calm, turned red. He was so excited that his limbs were trembling. There was nothing more exciting than suddenly receiving powerful reinforcements when you were in a hopeless situation where you could be defeated at any moment. Moreover, your best brothers had all come to share your trials and tribulations, breathe with you, and fight side by side with you. Amo Tianji leisurely walked out of the tent. His face looked as calm as ever, but his footsteps were getting faster and faster. There was a faint, uncontrollable anticipation in his eyes. The cabin door of the flying boat slowly opened. A figure flashed and a black figure appeared at the cabin door first. He had sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, a tall figure, and fluttering black hair. He stood tall and straight like a king. However, the excitement on his handsome face slightly destroyed his dignified aura. Mo Qingwu also appeared on Chu Yang's left in a flash of red. Xi Xiecheng also appeared on Chu Yang's right in a white robe. 3 people, 1 white, 1 black and 1 red. They flew down at the same time just like that. The man was handsome and elegant while the woman was peerlessly beautiful. It was this moment that was like flying immortals descending from the heavens. Many years later, the soldiers present would still remember this stunning moment in their minds. When I saw the minister and his 2 wives flying down from the airship, I almost suffocated to death. I'll wager it was the most beautiful sight I ever saw in my life. So said one of the generals who was present at the time, many years later. Boss. Big brother. Boss. Qing Wu. Second brother. Awu, 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 dog ant. Wahahaha. I'm a dog ant today. The chaotic and unintelligible noises made the onlookers shocked at first, then felt that it was funny. Then they felt that their eyes were wet. It was an indescribable feeling. It was very real and there was nothing fake about it. Luo Kadi and GMO flew up, Ao Shiyun and Rui Badong flew over, Mo Tianji and Xia Danqiang stood side by side, their lips trembling as they looked ahead. Dong Wushang rudely opened up a path, bringing Mo Layer with him as he dashed forward. But the fastest one was Gu Duxing, who had a sword in his hand. With a flash of sword light, Gu Duxing, who was one with his sword, appeared in front of Chu Yang. Their eyes met, and they paused for a moment. Then, the two of them hugged each other tightly. Then, Dong Wushang pounced over. In the next moment, Luo Kudi and the rest screamed as they threw themselves into the air and then fell down hard. In an instant, the 7 brothers had piled up into a human mountain on the ground. Mo Tianji's eyes flashed, and he said with a trembling voice, "Go quickly!" Xia Danqiang shouted with a trembling voice. He flew up and landed on the top of the human mountain. Mo Tianji laughed and was the last to jump up. But he was carrying a huge rock that weighed a few thousand pounds in his arms, and he threw himself up with it. "Fuck, you want to kill me, Mo Tianji, you little bastard, I really don't know how your brain grew. Fuck, you're crushing me to death, crushing me to death. You bastard, why aren't you up yet?" Suddenly, there was a tsunami of curses. Coupled with the sound of laughter, at this moment, this place was a sea of joy. The brothers messed around for a while. Although they had not seen each other for only 2 years, everyone felt as if they had been separated for 3 lifetimes. They were so excited that they felt as if they were going to explode. While they were hugging and joking around, the brothers used a very covert method to quietly wipe their eyes, and then continued to laugh and joke around. In the end, GMO really couldn't control his emotions that were about to explode. He took the lead and punched Luo Kudi in the face. Luo Kudi shouted and stood up, wanting to fight back. He grabbed GMO, the initiator, and the two of them began to fight. Seeing this scene, he really didn't know whether these two fellows were happy, excited, or just excited. Chu Yang crawled up with his face covered in dirt and shouted, "Brothers!" His voice was a little pretentious and boorish, just like a bandit who had never seen the world. The brothers shouted, "Boss, we're here!" Chu Yang shouted, "That bastard! He dares to bully us! What should we do?" "Grab your weapons!" Dong Wushang shouted. "Go and chop him up! Let's go!" Chu Yang waved his hand in high spirits. "Everyone grab your weapons and follow boss to chop him up! Oh, we'll chop him up! Damn it, he's too arrogant! He actually dares to bully my brother! See if I don't beat his dog and to death! Chop him up! Kill him! Kill him! Kill him! Ho ho! I'm going to rape him to death!" Rui Butong, who was the last to speak, immediately caused a roar of laughter. Instantly it was like a market. "Phoenix is still the best. Waha! She actually raped Yuan Tianming to death. She's too confident. Do you have that ability?" Ao Xian laughed until tears and snot came out. "Waha Rui Butong, go! Let us brothers broaden our horizons and broaden our horizons." The brothers clustered around Rui Butong and egged him on. Rui Butong yelled, "There are women here too. We must take revenge openly. That taste is too strong. Damn it, you bunch of hooligans." At the side, Mu Tsanglan was dumbstruck, flabbergasted, and speechless. This was the group of brothers that Siekui had mentioned. At first glance, they did look like 5 people, but why did they talk like a bunch of gangsters? This contrast was too big. You really couldn't judge a book by its cover. But how could he know that no matter which one of these people was, they would definitely be the most powerful bandit in this world? There were absolutely no fakes, and the goods were genuine at a fair price. It was a fair trade. Just as he was surprised, he suddenly heard a voice call out, "Marshal Mu." Mu Tsanglan turned around and couldn't help but be overjoyed. "Wuya, it's you?" The person who came was Meng Wuya. Suddenly meeting an old brother that they thought they would never meet again in this life on the battlefield, Mu Tsanglan and Meng Wuya were both indescribably excited. Thinking about what happened to each other not long ago, they couldn't help but sigh. The initial excitement didn't die down. Chu Yang and the other brothers fooled around for a long time. Until a very rough voice rang out. GMO, you bastard! Get out here for me! As soon as these words came out, all the brothers felt as if they were struck by lightning, and immediately became silent. Even a certain bird who claimed to want to kill Yuan Tianjia was no exception. Each and every one of them hid to the side with their tails between their legs, afraid that this tigress would see them and implicate them in this unexpected disaster. Apart from Miss Huyen Alba, who else could have such power and influence? It was really a shout, and the tribulation retreated. Jimo's face spasmed and his neck twisted. His face revealed a rather exaggerated and artificial surprise. He was so stiff that he almost thought that he was dreaming. A tall and slender woman with a round waist and a dignified aura walked over. She grabbed Jimo's ear and sneered. I haven't been by your side for the past 2 years. I heard that you've been quite dissolute. It's said that you've even found 8 or 10 concubines. You're very satisfied, huh? Her mouth was spouting nonsense, and her eyes were already filled with tears. Heavens earth, these are all rumors. Who is spreading rumors about me? I didn't. How would I dare? GMO cried out. My love for you can only be shown by the heavens. Even if the seas dry up and the rocks crumble, even if the sky falls and the earth shatters, even if my soul scatters, I still won't change. Wrong. I actually wanted to say. What did I want to say? Huyen Alba almost laughed, but she still grabbed Jimo's ear. Don't be so anxious. Come with me. Talk slowly. There is time. I will interrogate you properly. You didn't say that you didn't dare. If you dare. Under the dumbfounded gazes of everyone present, she grabbed Jimo's ear and left. Mu Tsunglan, Meng Wuya, and the others who had never seen it before had their eyebrows twitching wildly. Their eyeballs almost flew out of their sockets. If it wasn't for the fact that they had their eye sockets covering their eyes. GMO, this name is really good. Moreover, the wife he found is even better. When these two walk together, it is simply like a cute and lovable bird. It is quite standard. Little brother! A voice called. When Gu Duxing heard this, it was as if he had been struck by lightning. He turned his head abruptly and looked at the thin and graceful beauty standing not far from him. He opened his eyes wide and said in disbelief, Sister Xiao Miao? It was Gu Miaoling. Gu Miaoling stood alone in the wind. Her voice had a tinge of shyness. Gu Duxing roared like a tiger and rushed over. He held her in his arms and said in a low voice, Sister Xiao Miao. Sister Xiao Miao. Sister Xiao Miao. Chapter 23:17. A satisfied look appeared on Gu Miaoling's face, as well as a girl's unique bashful blush. She said in a low voice, Quickly put me down, you little fool. There are still so many people watching. Gu Duxing let go of her in a daze and nodded repeatedly. Yes. Yes. Sister Xiao Miao is thin-skinned. I'll hug you when there's no one around. Ugh! Gu Miaoling immediately covered her face. She was really so embarrassed that she wanted to crawl into a hole. This muddle-headed guy who only knows about swords and doesn't know anything else, what is he talking about? Beside them, a series of gloating laughter rang out because of this sentence. Of course, it was Luo Kadi and the others who would watch as long as there was a hot draw. Under Gu Duxing's murderous gaze, Luo Kadi continued to laugh as usual, as if he would rather die than laugh to his heart's content. It was a rare opportunity to mock Gu Duxing. If Luo Kadi let it go so easily, he would feel sorry for himself. He would feel even more sorry for all the beatings he had suffered all these years. Today, he must laugh to his heart's content. At this time, Madame Mei had already met up with Xie Danqiong, and Ao Xian's wife and concubines were also with him. Everyone had reunited after a long separation. There were simply endless things to talk about, and endless topics to talk about. Emo Qingwu was also chatting with her brother Emo Tianji, whom she hadn't seen for a long time. It was just that after the initial excitement, Emo Tianji's expression was a little anxious. His eyes were also a little wandering, as if he was looking for something that he had been looking forward to for a long time, but he just couldn't find it. Seeing this, Emo Chinwu pouted and stomped her feet repeatedly. Second brother, what's wrong with you today? Are you so happy that you've gone silly? Your own sister is right beside you talking to you, but you're distracted. You really can't let me down. Emo Tianji said hurriedly. Yes, this matter really needs to be carefully considered. These words simply did not match the horse's mouth, and even deserved a beating to the extreme. If they really wanted to talk about it according to the conversation, wasn't it extremely annoying? Emo Qingwu looked at her second brother angrily. She simply turned her head and ignored him, returning to Chu Yang's side angrily. Second brother is really too annoying. I've been thinking about him all these years, but I didn't expect him to not think about me at all. I'm so sad. Xie Danqiong's people had already welcomed the people from the flying boat at this time. They had set up a separate camp, and were eagerly receiving the incoming reinforcements. The entire camp was filled with the sound of laughter and the cheerfulness of the space. Even though they were on the battlefield, everyone could clearly feel the excitement in their hearts. This was especially so for the Dream Slayer army. Many of their brothers felt as if they were reunited after a long time. They hugged each other and refused to let go. Right at this moment, Emo Qingwu, who was by Chu Yang's side, suddenly realized that Emo Tianji seemed to have become more energetic all of a sudden. He couldn't help but be startled, secretly following his gaze. At this time, Emo Tianji only had eyes for one person. Obviously, he didn't expect that someone would deliberately observe him. He actually tidied his clothes, stroked his hair, coughed to clear his throat, and checked himself from head to toe. After confirming that there were no problems, he suddenly straightened his back and put on a pretentious pose with a very calm and magnanimous expression. Then, he strode forward. He laughed heartily and said, "Ha! Miss Lure, I knew you would come. It's really been a long time. Miss Lure is even more elegant than before. Congratulations." Across from him, there was a pretty girl in white. She was walking down from the flying boat. Her thin and delicate body seemed to be blown away by the wind. Emo Qingwu was so shocked that her eyes almost popped out of their sockets. So that's it. She understood her second brother's thoughts too well. Her second brother's expression had always remained unchanged even if a mountain collapsed in front of him. Even when facing emperors, heavenly emperors, and saint monarchs, Emo Tianji wouldn't pay so much attention to his appearance, and even deliberately check himself, but today, he actually showed such a perverted look in front of Chu Lure, this silly girl who always goes against me. This was simply intolerable. Even if the uncle could tolerate it, the aunt could not tolerate it. Second brother has betrayed me. Emo Qingwu stomped her feet lightly, looking extremely upset. Don't you know that this little girl often makes things difficult for your sister? Quarrels with me often? Don't you know that she's dead set against me and Chu Yang? She attacks me every day and fights me whenever she has nothing to do. Emo Tianji, you're my brother. You actually betrayed me without a firm stand. What's so good about this little girl? Sensing Emo Qingwu's abnormality, Chu Yang lowered his head in surprise. What's wrong? What's wrong? Emo Qingwu said angrily. Look at that Emo Tianji, he's making me so angry. He's really a jerk. Chu Yang looked over and saw Emo Tianji and Chu Lure talking politely. He didn't find anything unusual. He wondered, nothing. What are you angry about? Isn't this normal? Emo Qingwu heaved a long sigh of helplessness from the bottom of her heart. She felt even more listless. She leaned into Chu Yang's arms and didn't want to say anything more. At this moment, she suddenly understood how Chu Lure felt about her previously. This silly girl actually wants to be my sister-in-law. Is this the jealousy of someone who snatches the person her brother cares about? At the outermost periphery, Great Demon King Tan Tan, who finally appeared in a high profile, was fighting with Rui Badong and Luo Kadi. Of course, it wasn't the kind of fight where they were high up in the air. Instead, it was a vicious brawl on the ground where they were like hooligans. You hugged me, I hugged you. You punched me here and I kicked you there. They fought until their noses were bruised and their faces were swollen, but they were in high spirits. He was beaten until his nose was bleeding, and he was beaten until his heart was broken, yet he was still laughing heartily. He was actually enjoying himself. Tell me, how could this be justified? This made the few excited women sigh in their hearts. The friendship between men is really hard to understand. What is this? If you want to fight, then fight. Can't you fight where there's more meat? You just like to look up. It's as if it's not over until everyone turns into a panda. Can't you just sit down and have a good chat after meeting after a long separation? Reminisce about the feelings of parting? Must you beat them up first, and beat them until their noses are bruised and their faces are swollen to vent your excitement? Otherwise, it's not over. Men are really a strange kind of animals. After a period of bustling, everything finally returned to order. Everything was arranged in an orderly manner. Xia Danqiong's family was reunited. GMO and his wife were reunited. Tan Tan came with his family. Ao Xieyun was surrounded by his wife and concubines. Xia Danqiong had specially arranged several individual tents for these people. So, these lovebirds that had been separated for a long time could go inside and chat. Then, he led the rest of the people into the big tent while chatting and laughing. Xia Danfeng walked in with a pout. Her expression was actually similar to Mo Qingwu's, undisguised unhappiness on her face. Because Xia Danqiong didn't say much before he slipped away with his wife amidst the criticism of valuing women over friends. This made Xia Danfeng, who was inexplicably excited when she saw her brother, feel like a bucket of cold water was poured over her head. On Tan Tan's side, he was still shouting and fighting with Luo Kadi. She couldn't even find a shoulder to lean on. It would be strange if he was happy. In the end, Tan Tan, Rui Batong and Luo Kadi all came in with bruises and swollen faces. They sat at the end of the table with panda eyes. Mu Tsinglan accompanied the guests at the side. In any case, he treated them to a meal first. Since they were guests, this welcome banquet couldn't be skipped. After this meal, Mu Tsinglan actually felt a lot more at ease. This bunch of people looked crazy just now and didn't have any proper manners. But now, they looked much more pleasing to the eye. Every one of them was refined and courteous, showing the demeanor of a big family. Whether it was in terms of conversation or knowledge, every one of them was extraordinary. This situation made Mu Tsinglan's heart calm down. What he was most afraid of was that if they were all as crazy as that Mo Tianji, this Mo Yuntian might really disappear from this world. In fact, this was also reasonable. After all of these people were genuine younger brothers of aristocratic families apart from Tan Tan. And the basic conduct of a younger brother of an aristocratic family had long been imprinted in their bones. So, it was only natural that they would behave appropriately on appropriate occasions. As for Tan Tan, this guy's kingly demeanor had long been integrated into his body and mind. His every movement was like that of a king. Even though this guy looked ugly, his kingly demeanor was genuine. Even compared to Zhu Taibadian, Yuan Tianji, and even Shui Leihan, it wasn't inferior at all. And Mu Tsinglan was extremely sensitive to this demeanor. Naturally, he didn't have the slightest intention of underestimating him. But Mu Tsinglan also felt something else. Even though everyone was drinking in full swing, the way they looked at him was more or less, "You old man, why aren't you leaving yet? Why are you still so insensible?" It was a kind of meaning similar to this. Mu Tsinglan could definitely understand this feeling, because he really wanted to leave now. As the saying goes, people have the same thoughts, and their hearts share the same reasoning. Right now, he also wanted to find a quiet place to have a good chat with Meng Wuya, and drink some wine in peace. This kind of feeling was actually shared by everyone. But this old man had to stabilize today's situation first. First, 1 round. This is the most basic etiquette. After 3 rounds of drinking, Mu Tsinglan stood up. "Everyone, since we've met again after a long time, there must be a lot to talk about. This old man is old, so I'll go back to rest first. Everyone, please forgive me. Wuya, come with me. I have something to ask you." Meng Wuya also stood up as if he had been pardoned. "Okay." The two of them walked out. Just as they walked out of the tent, they heard a boom sound coming from inside. A loud and clear voice shouted, "Waha! Come, let's drink! Luo Kudi, you're not a man if you don't drink until you're buried under the table." Then, he howled like a wolf. "Okay, as long as you drink as much as I drink, there's absolutely no problem. Do you dare? Do you think I'm afraid of a bastard like you? Come, come, come! I'll go first. You drink after me. If I don't drink until you're on your knees today, I'll use my legs to walk from now on." Chapter 23:18. All kinds of noises continued until night time. Only then did the brothers finally come to their senses. Then, he sat down on a table. Not a single woman was present. Even Mo Qingwu and big sister Zi Xieqing, who belonged to the tribulations, were left in Chu Yang's private tent. Chu Yang, Mo Tianji, Gu Duxing, Dong Wushang, Gmo Ao Xian, Luo Kadi, Ray Batong and Xia Danqiong. Apart from Mo Qingwu, there was no one missing. Everyone had gathered together. Chu Yang sat at the head of the table, while Gu Duxing sat at the second seat. There was no dispute about their seats. It had always been like this. Except for the coincidence that year when Ray Batong succeeded in usurping the throne due to his talent in the Phoenix Nirvana but was quickly taken back by Gu Duxing, these two seats had never been changed. However, the fact that Mo Tianji was sitting in the third position had aroused the anger of the crowd. In fact, it seemed that it was inevitable that everyone would attack him. "Hey, who are you? What right do you have to sit there? Who do you think you are? Do you know your place?" Gmo was the first to speak. His nose was crooked and his eyes were bruised. When he was taken away by Huyan Aobua, his eyes weren't bruised. He must have been beaten up by his woman. Second Master Ji was obviously very dissatisfied with Mo Tianji sitting there. "That seat is mine. It was mine in the past, and now it's mine." "That's true. Our big brother said that we have to arrange the seats based on our abilities. It's fine if no one fights with Second Master Gu for his seat, but what right do you, Mo Tianji, have to sit at the third seat?" Luo Kadi yelled. "That's true." Dong Wushang frowned. "Mo Tianji, don't be so rude. That seat is not yours, right?" Ray Batong squinted and asked. "You said that Mo Tianji has no right. I don't object to that. But do you have the right to sit there?" "I think I should sit there. It's just right." Ao Xian snorted. Gu Duxing said coldly, "Get out." These people had been plotted against by Mo Tianji. So, they had found an appropriate opportunity to explode at this moment. So, how could they not hit him when he was down? Mo Tianji's expression didn't change. He was calm and composed. He pretended to be indifferent as he smiled. Everyone has made gratifying achievements in their respective worlds. This is truly worthy of celebration. Today, as long as someone says I don't want Mo Tianji to sit here, I can guarantee that his achievements will double after he goes back. Once these words are spoken, they cannot be taken back. Once spoken, they must be carried out. There is absolutely no falsehood. As soon as these words came out, the entire room became silent. Everyone was speechless. Even the extremely daring Dong Wushang had subconsciously shrunk his head back. Everyone was well aware of how their achievements came about. If Mo Tianji hadn't set up those desperate hunts that allowed everyone to make breakthroughs in life and death situations one after another, and if their mental states hadn't been tempered, it was likely that everyone's current achievements would only be ordinary. However, no one would want to experience the feeling of being hunted down again. Let alone experiencing that feeling again, even if they dreamed about it in the middle of the night, they wouldn't be able to sleep at night. It was too nightmarish. Especially after they had thoroughly angered Mo Tianji. That kind of pursuit back then had already made everyone feel so much pain that they wished they were dead. Do they want to do it again? That was something that only a fool would do. Although there was no lack of fools here, none of them was a real fool. Therefore, GMO instantly changed his stance and took the lead to express his opinion. "Actually, you people really don't know how to appreciate favors. You have eyes but can't see a mountain. I think that Mo Tianji sitting in the third position is what everyone wants. It's just right. It's a perfect combination. There's nothing more suitable. Apart from Mo Tianji, who else is as brilliant and elegant as third brother Mo? Luo Kudi. Are you not convinced? If you're not convinced, then come and spar with me. Luo Kudi frowned as if he had a toothache. When did I say that I'm not convinced? GMO, you're such a fickle, despicable and pretentious villain, GMO said arrogantly. How am I fickle? I'm a staunch supporter of third brother Mo. This point, even if the sea dries up and the rocks rot, my heart will never change. Rui Butong, if you have the guts, then say, I don't want Mo Tianji to sit here. Rui Butong shook his head like a rattledrum. I won't say it. Not only will I not say it, but if anyone dares to say it, I, Rui Butong, will immediately fight them to the death. Actually, only Ao Xie Yun dares to say such words. He has a dragon's gallbladder, which is definitely bigger than a leopard's gallbladder. It's enough to cover the sky. Bullshit! Ao Xie Yun shouted. Then, he turned to Mo Tianji and said flatteringly, Third brother Mo, my support for you can only be demonstrated by the heavens. Everyone knows that. Then, everyone looked at Dong Wuxiang and said gloatingly, That's true. Other than Dong Wuxiang, who's not afraid of anything, no one dares to say such words. Dong Wuxiang stared for a while and said, I definitely have to say these words. But before I came, Layer said that we're all brothers, so why should we fight for those empty titles? If Mo Tianji sits third, then so be it. Everyone knows how strong each other is, and justice is in everyone's hearts. Cough cough, I think Layer's words are very strange. And I don't want to hurt Layer. She told me not to compete with Mo Tianji, so I won't fight for it. Everyone laughed in unison when they heard this. This honest man didn't boast easily, but when he did, every word he said was logical and well organized. It was truly impressive. Mo Tianji waved his folding fan and turned to ask Gu Duxing. Second brother Gu, what do you think? Gu Duxing stared and said, If you have the ability, then come and snatch my second brother? I don't dare. I really don't dare. Mo Tianji was stunned. He smiled bitterly and said, Even if I have the ability, I won't snatch your second brother. Eh? Ha ha. GMO, Luo Kudi, Rui Butong, Ao Xie Yun and the others laughed in unison. They directly flipped the table and slapped their thighs and buttocks. They laughed so hard that they almost suffered internal injuries. Gu Duxing and Mo Tianji's words really made people's imagination run wild and let their imaginations run wild. You're here to snatch my second brother? Chu Yang was drinking a mouthful of wine. At first, it didn't sound like anything, but after thinking about it, he suddenly spat it out and coughed repeatedly. After all this banter, Mo Tianji's position was finally confirmed from today onwards. Third place. Just as Mo Tianji said, even if he had the ability, he wouldn't snatch the second brother's position from Gu Duxing. This represented the most basic form of respect. Chu Yang and Gu Duxing were the first brothers to know each other. The other brothers were basically pulled in by Gu Duxing. Although Gu Duxing had a cold face, he was very warm-hearted. His contribution to this team was definitely not inferior to anyone else's. Under Mo Tianji's threat, the brothers reluctantly acknowledged Mo Tianji's position. But the repercussions were even greater. Seeing that Mo Tianji effortlessly took the third brother's position, the eyes of the others turned red. Everyone was the same brother. Who didn't want to be at the front? As long as they could get the word brother, it would be very pleasant to hear. Giving in once is already considered as fulfilling our brotherhood. Who dares to snatch the fourth brother's position from me? Dong Wuxiang roared like a tiger. Unfortunately, the tiger's roar didn't intimidate the others. Instead, it attracted a lot of covetous gazes. What? We don't dare to snatch the first and second brother. Third brother disappeared in the blink of an eye. Why is fourth brother being snatched away now? You can't say that. Humph humph humph. Ao Xie sneered and turned his neck. He he he. Xie Danqiong laughed as if he had some bad intentions. Ha! Rui Butong rubbed his fists and was eager to give it a try. Roar, roar, roar! Luo Kudi's eyes lit up as he waited for an opportunity to make his move. He he he. GMO laughed strangely. His intentions were not good. What are you laughing at? Who doesn't agree? Come out! Dong Wushang flew into a rage and kicked over the table. This is too much of a bully. Look at Mo Tianji. He only said one sentence, and he became the third brother. My threat with the dark saber had no effect at all. This is too much of a blow to my self-esteem. Chu Yang looked at the brothers with interest. He didn't have the slightest intention to dissuade them. He even seemed to be fanning the flames and taking pleasure in their misfortune. On the other side, Mo Tianji had already issued a reward. Whoever can defeat Dong Wushang, I can guarantee that when we go to war against the heavenly demons, I will give him a vanguard position. Once a promise is made, it can't be taken back. There is no falsehood. Mo Tianji had long been recognized as the military advisor by the brothers. All military operations would be arranged by him. The weight of these words was self-evident. In an instant, there was an unprecedented smell of gunpowder. Dong Wushang was already holding the dark saber and striding out of the door. He shouted outside. Now, it's not only the title of fourth brother, but also the position of vanguard. Only the winner can get it. Amo Laer, who had been outside the tent all this while, covered her forehead. My adorable and naive husband. You haven't even gotten anything yet, but you have already become the target of public criticism. Now, won't the others come to find trouble with you? Actually, when they met, Mo Laer had already determined the general level of this group of people. They were basically about the same level. However, Chu Yang and Gu Duxing were slightly better than the rest. As for the others, GMO and Luo Kudi were slightly weaker, but not by much. They were still at the same level. Mo Laer was really shocked by this reality. She was really shocked. How in the world did these people increase their cultivation? How did they all improve so quickly? She and Dong Wushang had been fighting with their lives on the line and found a way to survive in the face of death. It was only then that they could reach their current level of cultivation. It was really unbelievable. Chapter 23:19. But against Ao Xieyun and Xie Danqiong, Dong Wushang didn't have much of an advantage. As long as he wasn't careful, the tables could be turned. And this was in a one-on-one situation. But if he faced two or more opponents, or if they took turns fighting him, he wouldn't stand a chance at all. Mo Laer had been silently calculating in her heart how she could give Dong Wushang the greatest chance of winning. After all, it was an honor to have a husband and a wife. Having a bunch of people calling her sister-in-law was better than having a bunch of people calling her sister-in-law. But at this time, Dong Wushang challenged a bunch of people alone. That night, the sounds of fighting didn't stop. Chu Yan, Mo Tianji and the rest watched for a while and fanned the flames. After that, they went into a small tent to discuss other matters. As for the remaining few people, under Gu Duxing's supervision, they were beaten black and blue for the whole night. Dong Wushang's situation was the most miserable. He was covered in injuries and his whole body was almost beaten up. But his results were good. In the end, he won by a small margin. He obtained the position of fourth brother. Among the brothers, only Dong Wushang, the fourth brother, had the hardest time getting it. He only managed to snatch it after being beaten to death. Even so, Ao Xieyun and Xie Danqiong were still a little indignant about this result. Even after they admitted defeat and called him fourth brother, the two of them gritted their teeth and did so. That indignation was practically on the verge of bursting out. Ignoring the fighting outside, Chu Yang and Mo Tianji discussed in the tent. The current situation is like this. Although it's not very pessimistic, we can't be careless. Mo Tianji explained the situation here in detail. Although it was said to be very detailed, it was actually very, very detailed. The details, the many minute changes, and so on, were simply like a super expert who understood the whole thing clearly. Even if Xie Danqiong, who was involved in this matter, was here now, he would be dumbfounded and admit that he was inferior. Because this kind of information was definitely something that he couldn't produce even if he worked hard to gather it for a lifetime. On the other hand, Mo Tianji had only been here for a few days. Moreover, he had been out of touch with his intelligence department for quite some time. Yet, he was able to come up with such detailed information today. It could be said that he was flawless and flawless. This kind of super strong coordination ability was really dumbfounding. How could they not be convinced? After Chu Yang listened carefully to Mo Tianji's summary, he pondered for a moment. Then, he said in a deep voice, "So, the current situation is that both sides don't want to fight anymore? Only Yuan Tianjie wants to fight?" Chu Yang's question could be said to be sharp and to the point. Mo Tianji pondered over Chu Yang's question for a while before replying. "Perhaps I can't say for sure. Right now, I can only say that the vast majority of soldiers don't want to fight. At least, before the facts are settled, the soldiers don't have the will to fight. Of course, those generals who were loyal to Yuan Tianjie, like Yuqi and the rest, were exceptions. They would still do their best to fight. Because if Yuqi wanted to replace Mu Tsanglan and Mo Yuntian, then Mu Tsanglan would have to be completely eliminated. She would definitely not allow Mu Tsanglan to have a chance to recover. This is the so-called blinded by greed. So, the current situation is that even if Yuan Tianji doesn't want to fight anymore, Yujia will still insist on fighting," Mo Tianji cautiously said. "So, what you said just now is not correct. Neither side wants to continue fighting," Chu Yang pondered and said. "If that's the case, then it's a little difficult. If everyone other than Yuan Tianjie doesn't have the will to fight anymore, then the situation is relatively easy to control. But as long as there are people who insist on fighting, then it's a completely different matter." Mo Tianji nodded and said, "That's true. The leader of the other side is still Yuqi and the rest. They have the final say. Even if the soldiers don't have the will to fight, the other side's military strength, combat power, and strength are still far above ours. If Yuqi is really allowed to fight to her heart's content, then the threat may be even greater than before. After all, Yuan Tianjie's strategy is a very passive and inefficient method. And once Yu Lai commands the army to attack with full force, if they use the method of Blood Blade of the law enforcement team to supervise the battle, then even if we don't lose, we will definitely have to pay a heavy price. Moreover, most of the soldiers there who have already lost their fighting spirit will become complete sacrificial lambs. Even if they don't die at the hands of our people, they won't be able to escape from the law enforcement butcher's knife of Yuqi and the rest. This is undoubtedly a deadlock." Chu Yang nodded deeply. "I think so too. It's really a difficult deadlock to resolve. If they don't understand the truth and don't doubt the truth, then fighting with us and killing them won't have the slightest psychological burden. But now that they have begun to doubt, if we kill them and kill their comrades, then it will be somewhat inexcusable," Mo Tianji said. "Especially those who used to work with them in the first place. I'm afraid that the guilt in their hearts will be even more intense. If we don't resolve it well, even if we can win this battle in the end, it will have a huge impact on future battles. It will only have a great impact, and many people will even develop inner demons because of it." Chu Yang frowned and pondered. "If that's the case, to break the deadlock, there's actually a way. It's simple and immediate," Chu Yang said slowly. "How can I not have thought of that? But it's undoubtedly very difficult to realize that method. The chances are very slim." Mo Tianji lightly tapped his forehead with his finger and said softly, "Because Yuan Tianjie is already seriously injured." Chu Yang nodded. The two of them undoubtedly thought of the same thing. But neither of them said it out loud. They began to think of countermeasures. What if the painting and calligraphy kings go and assassinate him? Mo Tianji frowned and said, "This is definitely not advisable." Chu Yang smiled bitterly. The painting and calligraphy kings have a deep hatred for Yuan Tianjie. Once they assassinate him, it'll be a fight to the death. But looking at the current strength, there's more than a 50% chance that the painting and calligraphy kings will die. The other 50% chance is just mutual destruction. I don't agree. Mo Tianji nodded. That's also reasonable. The chances are indeed too slim. Once we fail and alert the enemy, the situation will be even worse. Moreover, once we send someone to assassinate him, if we can't successfully force out Yuan Tianjia's real body, then I'm afraid that the other party will make a big fuss and arouse the mentality of many people to unite against a common enemy. If the situation returns to the previous situation, then we'll be too passive. Chu Yang said. So, if we want to take action, there's only one chance. There was only one chance. Once everything was done, it would be a great success. If we can't do it that time, the only result will be alerting the enemy. Then I'm afraid that we'll be left in dark cloud sky for the next few years and fall into a long-term battle. And the people who die on both sides will be our comrades in the heavenly imperial court. Mo Tianji said in a deep voice. More importantly, we obviously can't afford to waste time. Chu Yang nodded in deep agreement. Yuan Tianjie has been in dark cloud sky for many years. There must be a lot of heavenly demon experts around him. And these experts must be very strong. At the very least, they should be at the heavenly man level, or above. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they're at the saint level. Mo Tianji said. But now that the battle has reached this stage, other than that Illuwa confirmed by Commander Mu, not a single heavenly demon expert has shown up. Doesn't this mean one thing? These heavenly demon experts don't have the same concealment skills as Yuan Tianjie. Once they fight with all their strength, their real bodies will be revealed. So Yuan Tianjie won't let them take action if he can. Mo Tianji said solemnly. But from another perspective, this also shows how important Yuan Tianji is to his sensitive identity. If our plan doesn't go well and we can't force him to a dead end, then he won't really be exposed. That's natural. Chu Yang nodded lightly. Now the first problem is that Yuan Tianjie's own strength is really very strong. It's very difficult to deal with him. And on our side, we don't have any experts who can be compared to him. If only the Demon Empress or the East Sovereign were here. As long as one of them takes action, we can easily force him to show his true form with a little cooperation. But with our current strength, no one can do this in terms of individual combat power. If we can't do it in terms of individual combat power, we can't even completely tie him down. Once the situation is bad, he can escape at any time. We can't stop him from deliberately escaping. Mo Tianji said. This is the first problem. Continue. Chu Yang pondered. The second problem is that Yuan Tianjie is now under the protection of tens of millions of troops. There are as many experts as there are clouds. We don't have a chance to fight him in a one-on-one battle. If we carry out an assassination, if our assassins can't force him to show his true form in the first moment, other experts will arrive. We have no way to deal with this. Continue. Chu Yang nodded with his eyes closed. The third problem is that the Saint Lord has publicly expressed his full support for Yuan Tianjie. The reason is really worth thinking about. Mo Tianji said lightly. There must be some reason that we don't know. If at a critical moment the Saint Lord expresses his support again, and we can't force Yuan Tianjie to show his true form at that time, the consequences will be very serious. It's very likely that all our previous efforts will go down the drain. So even if there's no way to deal with this, we don't have much time left. Mo Tianji said seriously. We have to guard against this. If the Saint Lord can express his support once, he can help twice. It might even be substantial help. We do need to guard against this. Chu Yang sighed softly. Chapter 23:20. It looks like the situation is going well, but it's just an illusion. An empty pavilion. Mo Tianji said softly. Whether it's opposing Mu Tsenglan, cursing Mu Tsenglan, or opposing the limits of Yuan Tian, or doubting the limits of Yuan Tian, the patience and endurance of the people will not last long. They are easily swayed and changed by external forces. And once they change, it's even easier for them to blindly follow the new trend. This is human nature. If it really comes to a point where things can only move in the opposite direction, it's bound to be defeated. Similarly, there's no way to deal with this. Even if we do everything we can to temporarily maintain the popularity of public opinion, we are ultimately not gods. It's impossible to maintain it for a long time. One day, they will get used to it. Mo Tianji sneered. The adaptability of human beings is too strong. This part is really detestable. This is especially true for us now. Chu Yang couldn't help but smile bitterly. Although he admitted that Mo Tianji's analysis of human nature was very reasonable, now was really not the time to analyze human nature. Although Mo Tianji's analysis was focused on the current situation, Chu Yang still felt uncomfortable when he heard it. If even Chu Yang felt uncomfortable when he heard it, then once others heard it, it would really shake the morale of the army. Chu Yang's complexion suddenly became very serious. In an instant, he asked a question with a serious look on his face. Tianji, do you think? Chu Yang considered his words carefully and said slowly, that Lord Saint, could he also be a heavenly demon? Or even? Mo Tianji's eyes widened. Say it through telepathy. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. Actually, I've been thinking about this for a long time. Why did the heavenly emperor of purple clouds, Zi Hao, fight against the heavenly demon alone? Why did the 5 guards of the heavenly emperor of purple clouds all die in the saint's jurisdiction? Why did the saint fight with the East sovereign after that? Why is Yuan Tianming, a heavenly demon, protected by him? If a person can reach the position of the saint, is there really such a foolish person? Chu Yang frowned and asked. Mo Tianji frowned and thought with difficulty. It was indeed difficult for him to think about this question, because Chu Yang's words were truly earth-shattering. Although Mo Tianji had some guesses in his heart before, he had a habit of not saying anything unless he was certain. He was left to fumble and calculate by himself. Mo Tianji was caught unprepared by Chu Yang's sudden and earth-shattering question. He wanted to say something, but hesitated. Furthermore, Mo Tianji understood that the reason why Chu Yang suddenly brought up this sensitive issue was because he wanted him to stand on the opposing side and analyze, argue, and prove that the Saint Monarch was not a heavenly demon. This undoubtedly increased the difficulty by a lot. I think. Fine beads of sweat appeared on Mo Tianji's forehead. He unconsciously reached out his hand to wipe them and said, Saint Monarch, shouldn't be. Heavenly demon, shouldn't be. These words could be said with great reluctance. Chu Yang was very dissatisfied. Where's the evidence? Mo Tianji rolled his eyes and almost scolded. You say that he's an extraterrestrial demon, but where's your proof? Isn't this making things difficult for me? But of course, he could not say this out loud. If he really said it out loud, Mo Tianji did not doubt that Chu Yang would beat him up on the spot. Because now was definitely not the time to bicker. Chu Yang looked at Mo Tianji. Where's the evidence? Chu Yang asked again very seriously. Chu Yang knew that Mo Tianji was such a person. Some things needed to be forced to find out. Then, even if there was no reason, Mo Tianji could find a reason. The famous saying of stirring up trouble without reason was carried forward by people like Mo Tianji. And now, for the time being, Chu Yang needed such a reason. Even if there was no life. Even if it was undeniable. Even if it was just a guess. Even if it was possible. Mo Tianji frowned as he heard this. He pondered with great difficulty. In fact, ever since Mo Tianji knew that Saint Monarch was not an extraterrestrial demon, he had been suspicious of Saint Monarch's identity. As a qualified strategist, he had to think carefully. No matter how absurd the possibility was, he could not let it go. But Saint Monarch, the number 1 person in the Heaven Imperial Court, if even he was suspicious, if even this number 1 person could be an extraterrestrial demon, then what hope did the Heaven Imperial Court have? Although Mo Tianji knew that Saint Monarch was suspicious, he still forced himself to let go of this clue. This was also the main reason why the previous rumors did not suspect that Saint Monarch was an extraterrestrial demon. That was a forbidden area that could not be doubted. But at this moment, Chu Yang was clearly questioning this forbidden area. After a long time, Mo Tianji said, "If you must say, then there are a few things that can prove that Saint Monarch is not an extraterrestrial demon." Chu Yang's eyes lit up. "Say it?" In fact, Chu Yang did not want Saint Monarch to be an extraterrestrial demon. He would rather believe that Saint Monarch was blinded by some external force or because of some special factors. Even if he was blinded by greed, he would still be more honest than Saint Monarch. It was good that he was transformed from an extraterrestrial demon. The first reason is very simple and very objective. Saint Monarch was recognized as the #1 expert in the Heavenly Imperial Palace. He was in charge of the Heavenly Imperial Palace not because he was highly respected and virtuous, but because his martial strength was the absolute #1 at the peak. No one could compare to him. No one below Di Ho was his opponent. That was why he occupied the position of Saint Monarch. If he was really an extraterrestrial demon at that time, he could have killed all of Di Ho and destroyed the most elite of the Heavenly Imperial Palace. Even if he was not strong enough and could not kill all of them, he could still find an excuse to say that he had failed once or twice. It would not be a big deal. After all, Di Ho was just a few top experts, and not the king who had the power to rule over a region today. Because that was a battle of life and death. If that was the case, the Heavenly Imperial Palace would have lost a lot of power. Saint Monarch did not do so and helped Di Ho today. This is the first reason. As Mo Tianji spoke, he slowly organized his thoughts and chose his words carefully. Chu Yang nodded silently. The second point is that the 10 heavens and earth of this Heaven Imperial Court were actually personally created by the Saint Monarch. This is truly a huge supernatural power that reaches the heavens. Furthermore, other than the extreme heaven, each of the 10 heavens and earth has a small territory that is ingeniously connected. Of course, excluding the 2 opposing heavens and earth. The location of the connection is very strange. It is adjacent to the purple cloud heavens. Mo Tianji took out a map and pointed out these few locations on the map. Chu Yang looked at it seriously and his face became a little doubtful. This can completely explain. When Saint Monarch divided the 10 heavens and earth, his real purpose was to regulate the Heavenly Imperial Palace and have their own strict rules and regulations. Another obvious reason was to guard against the invasion of the extraterrestrial demons. Mo Tianji pondered and said, "This is a very outstanding defensive formation. Even if I personally arranged it, it would not be as good as this. The Heavenly Imperial Palace is really too big. It is impossible to completely unify it." Chu Yang looked carefully and said, "That's not necessarily the case. If the extraterrestrial demons were to invade, this would indeed be the best and fastest route for the various heavens to send out their troops. However, if the extraterrestrial demons were to really make a move and invade the various heavens, wouldn't this route also be the most convenient one? It is hard to say who is truly convenient by doing this." Mo Tianji smiled and said, "Boss, you're too stubborn in believing that there's something wrong with the saint. This line of thinking is too biased. Back then, the extraterrestrial demons paid such a huge price just to deal with purple cloud heavens. They could not move for 1,000,000 years. Where did they get the strength to deal with the 10 heavens and earth at the same time? If they did not divide their troops, the extraterrestrial demons could still be considered a serious problem. But if they attacked separately, the extraterrestrial demons would become clowns. How could they withstand a single blow?" Mo Tianji snorted. Obviously, he was very dissatisfied with Chu Yang's nitpicking. If he did not have sufficient evidence, why would he bring it up? There is one more point, and it is also the most important point. Since Saint Monarch took over, except for the purple cloud heavens incident, the overall strength of the Heavenly Imperial Palace, including the population and the number of experts, has increased by more than 10 times compared to 1,000,000 years ago. Whether it is the increase in wealth, manpower, or the cultivation of experts. Mo Tianji said, All of them are real military strength. From this point, Saint Monarch has really made a great contribution to the heavenly imperial palace. Chu Yang racked his brains to find a loophole but realized that he really could not refute it. He could not help but feel depressed and said, "According to your analysis, Saint Monarch is actually a very good person. At least, he is a great contributor to the heavenly imperial palace. But if that is the case, why did the purple cloud heavens fight alone? But now, he was helping Yuan Tianji so much, what was going on? This does not make sense. If Saint Monarch is a good person who thinks wholeheartedly for the heavenly imperial palace, then, are the purple cloud heavenly emperor Zi Hao and Dong Wang Shui Leihan bad guys?" Chu Yang shook his head hard. "Although they did not interact much, I think that these two emperors are definitely not despicable people. They also do not have any connection with the extraterrestrial demons. There is no room for doubt about this," Emo Tianji said seriously. "Although I am sure that Saint Monarch has made great contributions to the heavenly imperial palace and is indeed a contributor to the heavenly imperial palace, I definitely did not say that. Saint Monarch is a good person." Emo Tianji revealed a mocking smile and said, "Since ancient times, those who can ascend to such a high position, even the ruler of a country in the lower three heavens, are not good people. A contributor and a good person are two completely different concepts, right?" Chapter 23-21. Perhaps the heavenly emperor of purple clouds, Zi Hao, is a good person deep down. Emo Tianji sighed softly. Therefore, even though he has already become a heavenly emperor, it is inevitable that he will die an unnatural death. Chu Yang was silent. After a long time, he suddenly asked seriously, "Tianji, are you a good person?" Emo Tianji was furious. What do you mean by that? Are you mocking me?" Chu Yang laughed. "Actually, in our land, other than Qing Wu and Miss Lur, there is not a single good person. Who dares to say that they are good people? Who dares?" Emo Tianji's words were obviously a little angry. Chu Yang sighed deeply and said softly, "How can there be a good person in the martial world? Even for people like us, we have already caused the destruction of countless families. The sins under our hands have long accumulated. The bones under our feet have long piled up into mountains. As long as we can ask for a clear conscience, it's fine." Chu Yang sighed. Emo Tianji's words made Chu Yang sigh inexplicably. Emo Tianji was silent for a long time. Then, he changed the topic and said, "Saint Monarch may have done many wrong things in the past. But I think that he must have his own reasons for doing so. It may not be a reason to meet people, but there must be a reason. If the supreme ruler of a generation is really the incarnation of the heavenly demon, then this heavenly imperial court may have long ceased to exist, or it may have long become the territory of the heavenly demon." Emo Tianji said, "This is my strongest reason." Chu Yang could only nod. Emo Tianji's reason was undoubtedly strong, unquestionable, and unshakable. Since this was the case, then the matter of why he protected Yuan Tianjia and the purple cloud's heavens could be temporarily put aside. The biggest rock in his heart was removed first. Since we have reached a consensus on this point, then our most important goal now is to start planning to kill Yuan Tianjia. Chu Yang took a deep breath and said, "What I'm most afraid of isn't Yuan Tianjia, but if Saint Monarch is really a heavenly demon after we defeat Yuan Tianjia, then we'll have destroyed the long-term plan that the heavenly demon side has deployed for who knows how many years. If this causes the other side to counterattack, then with our current strength, we won't have any leeway to resist. We'll definitely die. We still need some time to grow." Chu Yang smiled helplessly. Emo Tianji sighed and said helplessly, "That is indeed the case. If the Saint Monarch is really the incarnation of the heavenly devil, then we really can't withstand the powerful counterattack after killing Yuan Tianji." Chu Yang made the final decision and said, "But now, let's just take it that this concern has been dispelled. Let's kill Yuan Tianjia first." "Kill him?" What Chu Yang said was kill. The next step of the plan was to kill them. Getting rid of Yuan Tianji was different from misleading, exposing, and subverting him. It was difficult to rely on external forces, and one or a few of them had to do it personally. Considering Yuan Tianji's own strength and his own abilities, how could it be easy to get rid of him? This was undoubtedly an extremely difficult problem, but as tribulation strategist, he had to face it head-on. Emo Tianji didn't say anything more. Instead, he sank into a long period of contemplation. Forcing Yuan Tianji to reveal his true form under the current circumstances was already a problem that was harder than ascending to the heavens. And after forcing him to reveal his true form, he would no longer have any scruples and would become even more terrifying. If they wanted to kill him, the difficulty would increase by more than double. Under the protection of tens of millions of soldiers, experts were as numerous as clouds, and their trump cards were probably still far from being used up. Yuan Tianji's own strength was also a super expert that far exceeded theirs. Furthermore, considering Yuan Tianji's special identity, he wouldn't casually enter the battlefield. How to get rid of him? In an instant, Emo Tianji's mind had already gone through at least 30 or 40 plans. But every one of them was inferred from the opposite direction, and because of various factors, flaws, and reasons, they all failed to work. Chu Yang quietly walked out. Only Emo Tianji was left alone in the tent, deep in thought. This was Emo Tianji's specialty. Even Chu Yang couldn't interfere. If he hastily interfered, it would only disturb Emo Tianji's train of thought. There was no benefit to it. Speaking of which, Minister Chu didn't feel any pressure at all. He didn't even think about whether or not it was easy to kill Yuan Tianji, or how to kill him. He only felt that his entire body was relaxed and comfortable, and it was rare for him to feel comfortable. In the time that Emo Tianji wasn't by his side, he had to do all these brainstorming things himself. Now that this guy was finally by his side, of course, he had to hand over all these things to him. Wouldn't it be more refreshing to drink wine and brag on his own? Of course, Chu Yang made this choice because he believed that Emo Tianji would definitely have a way. He definitely would. Outside, it was still in full swing. The brothers had just met, and were fighting to their heart's content. It was like a raging fire, and it was hard to tell who was the winner. Right now, there were two pairs of people fighting each other. Ao Shiyun and Rui Badong were wrestling and rolling around on the ground, while GMO and Luo Kudi were fighting each other. Both sides had already turned into two pig-headed people with panda eyes. Gu Du Xing and Dong Wushang were watching the fight from the side with their hands behind their backs. Xie Danqiong didn't have an opponent for the time being. Having no opponent meant that he didn't have a ranking. His face was gloomy. With two bangs, Ao Xie Yun kicked Rui Butong's stomach fiercely. At the same time, Rui Butong also punched his chest heavily. The two of them rolled to the sides at the same time like rolling gourds. Then, they stood up and wrestled again. Then, with a plop, they rolled on the ground and rolled around again. This scene definitely didn't look like a fight between two saint-level experts. It looked more like two hooligans fighting to the death for half a tael of silver. If other saint-level experts were to see this scene, they would definitely be ashamed to call themselves saint-level experts. At the very least, these brothers in front of them would all be removed from the list of saints. Not only did saint-level experts have high cultivation, they also had to have a certain level of moral integrity. Did these people in front of them even have any moral integrity? What's the situation now? Who's first and who's last? Chu Yang's mouth twitched as he asked Gu Du Xing. Number 4 has already appeared. Look, it's this guy. He's the one who's at the top. Gu Du Xing pursed his lips in Dong Wushang's direction and said, As for number 5 and the subsequent rankings, they're still in the process of being produced. Cough, cough, cough. Chu Yang coughed violently a few times. He looked at the few people on the ground whose faces were almost indistinguishable. Everyone's faces were swollen like a pig's head. They had panda eyes and were covered in gray clothes, whose original color and texture couldn't be seen. He subconsciously swallowed his saliva and said, It seems a little tragic. Gu Du Xing pursed his lips. Boss, you're wrong today. These guys are very restrained. Don't look at how they're beaten up. In fact, none of them are injured. Not even the slightest bit of internal injuries. What kind of result can they achieve by fighting like this? If they really fought with their lives on the line, it would be more like it. Dong Wushang's wave just now was the real deal. Dong Wushang cracked open his bruised lips and snorted. I don't care about them. It's fine as long as they call me Big Brother. What's a little injury? Noodles, that's noodles. Chu Yang was surprised. This guy's requirements were really low. But at least his words made sense. As the saying goes, if you're not in charge, you don't know the cost of firewood and rice. How could a certain king of hell who was used to being the boss understand the thoughts of his brothers? This round went on for an entire night. Finally, the outcome was decided. Xie Dan Cheong, who had been unhappy earlier, was waiting at ease for the exhausted ones. When the four of them were exhausted from fighting, he took advantage of their precarious state to issue a challenge. 1 against 4, the result was very obvious: complete victory. And so, a certain someone who was far-sighted, cunning, and took advantage of others' precarious state was ranked 5th. Ao Xian was ranked 1st. Ji Mo's sneak attack succeeded and he was ranked 7th. Luo Kadi was ranked 8th. Rui Badong was the most aggrieved. After being sneak attacked by GMO, he was hit by Luo Kadi when he was down. Finally, Xie Dan Cheong took advantage of his precarious state. Tragically, he was ranked last. He gritted his teeth in indignation. But since the boss had already made the decision, he could only follow the order. The pitiful Rui Badong was truly reduced to being the youngest from now on. In the days that followed, he constantly heard shouting and wrangling. Youngest! Pour a cup of tea for me. Little brother, you better stand properly. Listen to your 7th brother's lecture. Listen to your big brother's golden rule. Youngest, come over for a while. I have something to talk to you about. But no matter what, the rankings of the brothers were officially set from today onwards. It was no longer as messy as before. In the past, it always gave people a muddle-headed and annoying feeling, but from now on, everyone finally stopped randomly adding names to themselves. Because there would definitely be people who would object. And since they were adding names to the big ones. Unfortunately, the big ones couldn't be offended. They really couldn't beat them. Mo Tianji heaved a sigh of relief and slowly walked out. Seeing his expression, Chu Yang was relieved. Judging from his expression, he must have thought of a solution. A think tank wouldn't be a think tank. Everyone had their own specialties. In the future, such work would all be handed over to someone else. The strength that we have now is still not enough. Mo Tianji pointed at Dong Wushang, Gu Duxing and the others with some disappointment. This bunch of people's progress is really too slow. When they went to the imperial court, all of them were already at the earth level. Until now, it took them more than 2 years to reach this level. They obviously had such a good opportunity and such a good cultivation environment, but they only have this little bit of cultivation. How shameful! With the manpower we have here, even if we all join forces against the enemy, I'm afraid we still won't be a match for that guy Yuan Tianjie. This is the biggest problem right now. Progress is too slow. It took them 2 whole years to reach the saint level from the earth level. Chapter 23-22. His words were not an exaggeration. It took him a long time to calm down. He felt so conflicted that he almost fainted again. The two of them were having a conversation just now. They were reminiscing about their parting. However, these tents weren't soundproof. Moreover, their cultivations were high. Moreover, Chu Yang's side didn't deliberately set up a soundproof barrier. Therefore, the two of them were very clear about what was going on here. Seeing these guys fighting like hooligans, the two of them could only pretend that they did not hear anything. What else could they do? If they did not want to be with them, they could only pretend that they did not know. But what Mo Tianji had just said was really too shocking. No matter how much they pretended that they did not hear or know, they could not. You motherfucker, in just 2 years, you went from Earth level to Saint level and you still think that it is too slow. How could you even think of saying that? How can you motherfucker say this? Are you not afraid of being beaten to death by those Saint-level martial artists in the Heaven Imperial Court? You actually said 2 whole years, only. You've improved to such a level. Especially the words only and only, it made Mu Tsung-lan and Meng Wuya want to bang their heads against the wall. You've only used 2 years to cross so many levels, and you still think it's too slow? Then, shouldn't we, who have waited hundreds of thousands of years or even millions of years to reach this level, kill ourselves early so that we won't become a laughingstock? Motherfucker! Mu Shui swore, which was a rare sight. He muttered, in just 2 years, they have already reached this level. Even if there are many opportunities, it is still unprecedented. And you still think that it is too slow. If these guys were really given 2 million years, wouldn't they be able to blow away the Heaven Imperial Court with just a breath? My current mood can only be summed up in one word, motherfucker. Meng Wuya could only smile bitterly because he also thought the same. Mu Tsung-lan and Meng Wuya definitely didn't know just how wise and far-sighted they were right now. It seemed that after a long time, Chu Yang and his brother's achievements had really reached such a realm. Moreover, they were still gradually surpassing it. Gradually increasing. Gradually leaping. How did such evildoers, and a group of evildoers at that? For such a person to appear once in a few million years, it was already a legend. Now, a bunch of them had appeared at once. A bunch of legends? A bunch of legends? Mu Tsung-lan frowned and said, the most ridiculous thing is that these people are all gathered together and working together? This was really surprising. As long as time passes, what power in the world will be able to contend against them? Meng Wuya smiled bitterly. Actually, I'm also wondering about this. Mu Tsung-lan suddenly laughed bitterly. Just listening to their conversation is enough to kill me. At this moment, Mo Tianji was lecturing them. None of you are working hard. Look at your pitiful cultivation, what can you do? If others see you, they will laugh at you to death. Everyone lowered their heads in shame and admitted their mistakes. Yes, we really didn't work hard enough. We're ashamed. What a pitiful cultivation base. Mu Tsung-lan's face revealed a constipated expression. He closed his eyes tightly and waved his hand, activating a soundproof barrier. Did you hear that? Did you hear what the novel said? Also, what did those guys say? I'm ashamed. What a joke. I have 1,000,000 years of self-control, but I really can't listen to it anymore. You guys are already like this, and you still don't work hard. Then what does it mean to work hard? You guys are already like this, and you still want to feel ashamed? You still want to laugh? Tell me, do you still want to give others a way out? Meng Wuya's face was also tangled. These people are really daring. That Chu Yang, with an ant's cultivation base, dared to kill Yuan Shu Tuesday. That Xie Dan Chiong, with an ant's cultivation base, dared to raise a flag and rebel. The way these people do things cannot be judged by common sense. Let's pretend we didn't hear it. Sigh. The two of them looked at each other and let out a long sigh. They both had a speechless feeling of we're old. If our cultivation base is not enough, then we will improve it further. Chu Yang's face revealed a thoughtful expression. Then, he clapped his hands and said, since the general direction has been decided, then come everyone. I have something good to share with everyone. Mo Tianji's eyes lit up. Could it be that boss has something good to improve cultivation base again? But everyone's cultivation base had already reached this level. Although the heavy pill had a great effect and had a certain effect on improving cultivation base, it really didn't have much meaning to everyone at the moment. Moreover, the real miraculous effect of that thing was that it could instantly heal injuries and strengthen one's foundation. It was also a good thing. Purely using it to improve one's cultivation base was really not worth the loss. The brothers didn't have Mo Tianji's brain. In an instant, they had already made 180 turns and jumped up nimbly. Even the previously dejected Rui Budong suddenly became lively and full of energy. Everyone knew that since Boss said it was something good, then it must be a super good thing that was hard to find in elegant heavenly palace. It must be of great use. Chu Yang's target was the netherworld fruit. The remaining fruits were just enough for 3 people. As for the others, he had already used them for other purposes. Chu Yang had also hardened his heart and simply made all of these treasures in one go. They could not afford to lose this battle. As for the heaven-earth mystery yellow fruit, it was a pity. Although there was still a lot of it, because the brothers had already used it once in the Chongtian continent, even though the 13 of them had used it together, it still didn't have any effect. Now that they had used it repeatedly, other than strengthening one's foundation, there was no other effect. This point made Chu Yang moan and groan. It wasn't easy for him and the brothers to reach the level where each of them could use one, but it didn't have any effect. This really made people speechless, But being able to strengthen one's foundation was also quite effective. Therefore, this time, everyone took one heaven-earth arcane yellow fruit each. The latter half of the night passed quietly in the cultivation area. The only thing that made Chu Yang feel surprised was that although the battle here was in full swing, Tan Tan, who always liked to be lively, actually didn't come to participate. This didn't seem to be in line with his temperament. In the morning of the second day, when Mu Tsanglan and the rest gathered in the tent, they were very surprised to find that they had not received any news from these people for a short period of time. In such a short period of time, it was as if they had been reborn. The most ridiculous thing was that everyone's cultivation had obviously soared by a lot. Everyone's body was full of energy, and there was a faint divine light. Obviously, the improvement this time was not small. So much so that a few of them had already broken through their bottlenecks, and started to advance towards the high-level saint level. And they had already walked a considerable distance. Mu Tsunglan and the others were fiercely shocked by this reality. What was going on here? It had only been one night. They had clearly only heard them fighting the entire night. How did they suddenly improve so much? This was too unimaginable, too shocking, too inconceivable, too incomprehensible, right? If they all rushed forward at such a speed, wouldn't they be able to catch up to me in a few days? Mu Tsunglan was obviously thinking too much and was a little whimsical. If it weren't for Chu Yang's large amount of heavenly treasures, it wouldn't have been able to create such a shocking effect. And after this time, it was basically all used up. The road from now on could only rely on one's own efforts and luck. Mo Tianji sat in the middle and said softly, "Experts of saint level and above can stay. The rest can go and patrol the defense of the army, and prevent any sneak attacks from the enemy." This sentence made the crowd in the big tent shrink by a large amount. There were only a total of 40 to 50 people left. Brother Jie, Mo Qingwu, Zi Xieching, Tan Tan, Chu Luer, Mo Layer, the painting and calligraphy kings, the 2 great guards of Demon Emperor Tian, all saint-level experts. Even Yao Taiyao and Yao Ningning were chased out. Other than them, there were Mu Tsunglan, Meng Wuya and the other experts who were originally part of Mo Yintian's army, as well as Xie Danxiong's Heavenly Armament Pavilion experts. This group of people made up 25 people. There were a total of 40 people present. Of course, there was also a hidden expert. That was the trump card that Chu Yang and Mo Tianji had agreed on, the Divine Spirit of Calamity. Today, we have to decide on a huge strategy, and that is to force out Yuan Tianji's heavenly demon Rio body and completely kill him here. Mo Tianji's first words had given everyone a fright. Although the rebellion was already an indisputable fact, and there was no turning back, everyone also dreamed of killing Yuan Tianji. However, everyone knew in their hearts that at most, they could only drive him away. It was really very difficult to truly kill him. But now, this ruthless person from the Tianji Intelligence Department actually directly said to kill him. There was no pretense at all. It was just that in the current situation, surrounded by tens of millions of enemy troops, how could they completely kill Yuan Tianji? This problem was so difficult that it was almost impossible to solve. The attack of public opinion outside has basically reached its peak. It's meaningless to forcefully increase the attack. Mo Tianji was silent for a while and said, "The so-called public opinion can only cause so much effect. Although most of the ordinary soldiers in the enemy army have started to waver, the higher-ups still have the power. So, it's not to the point where a mutiny can happen. So, the battle between the two armies still has to continue. So, there's no need to have any wishful thinking. This is still a tough battle." Chapter 23-23. From today onwards we will begin our counterattack. Mo Tianji looked at Xie Danqiong and Mu Tsanglan. His eyes were sharp. "Your mission is to restrain the majority of the enemy's forces." Mu Tsanglan and Xie Danqiong's faces turned serious. Restrain the majority of the enemy's forces. This would undoubtedly be a huge price to pay. This sentence meant that millions of lives, or even more, would be lost because of it. They were already at a disadvantage. If they had to take the initiative to attack and restrain the majority of the enemy's forces, they would have to mobilize all their forces. "My men and the fresh troops that Chu Yang and I brought can all be under your command. However, the two of you cannot personally command the battle. You can do it today, but not tomorrow or the day after. You have to cooperate with us and force Yuan Tianji out." Mo Tianji said calmly, "I think General Meng should be able to take on this heavy responsibility." Meng Wuya stepped forward. "I will not disappoint you. Today, I do not want to see any signs of the battle stopping. We must suppress the enemy until they are exhausted in 2 days and 1 night. This is a death order. We must carry it out to the end. Even if everyone dies, we must continue to carry it out." Mo Tianji said word by word. As he spoke, an abnormally strong smell of blood began to spread in the air. From this day onwards, the battle situation that had changed several times had undergone a fundamental change. In terms of strength, Mu Tsunglan's side was originally at an absolute disadvantage, and could even be said to be at an absolute disadvantage. Even with the arrival of Chu Yang's powerful reinforcements, even if it was not a drop in the bucket, it was still not much of a hindrance to the overall situation, and could not affect the situation at all. They were still at a disadvantage. At most, they were no longer at a dead end. But during this period of time, the real factor that changed the battle situation was that Mu Tsunglan's side originally had no fighting spirit. But now, the enemy was filled with doubts and apprehensions. No matter whether it was the soldiers or the generals, they no longer had the will to fight. In this way, Mu Tsunglan's side's absolute disadvantage was evened out. Although this was only a temporary phenomenon, and was even an illusion built on top of an illusion, the current situation was like this. Now, while Yu Qi's side was worrying about how to mobilize the soldiers and motivate them to fight, Mu Tsunglan's side suddenly took the initiative to attack. Moreover, it was an omnidirectional, indiscriminate, unrestrained, and irregular attack. Facing this situation, Yu Qi and Yuan Tianji were both overjoyed at the unexpected good news. No matter what was wrong with the other party, or perhaps because he thought that reinforcements had arrived, he actually took the initiative to attack? However, Yuan Tianji didn't care about this at all, because it wasn't important at all. Even if a certain amount of reinforcements came, how many people could there be with just those few flying boats? Even if they were fully loaded with soldiers, how many people could there be? Thus, he immediately ordered Yu Qi, "Fight with all your might." Yu Lai naturally did not dare to be negligent in this regard. Different situations call for different actions. Although there were quite a number of generals who were unwilling to go to war and still harbored such thoughts in their hearts, there were still a large number of generals under Yu Hio's command that could be mobilized. These people had been fighting against the Mu Tsunglan group for many years. They were Yu Qi's direct subordinates and had always been at a disadvantage when fighting against the Mu Tsunglan group. Now that they had a rare opportunity to hold their heads high, all of them were full of fighting spirit. As a result, an unprecedentedly fiery battle unfolded like a raging fire. Mu Tsunglan attacked even more powerfully. He appeared in the sky and directly challenged Yi Luowe. How could Yi Luowe be willing to back down in this battle? She immediately met the challenge. Furthermore, if someone like Mu Tsung-lan who could single-handedly change the outcome of a battle joined the battle, it definitely wouldn't be a good thing. Iluoa did not hesitate at all. She stepped forward bravely and met Mu Tsung-lan in the sky. On the ground, under Xie Danqiong's precise command, the Heavenly Armament Pavilion's army attacked from all directions in multiple batches like a surging tide. At the highest point, Mo Tianji was sitting on a chair. He gently fanned himself as he slowly observed the battlefield below. Of course, the main focus of his attention was on Yuan Tianji's monarch's camp. Without making a sound, his divine sense had already quietly penetrated into it. Under normal circumstances, under such a great battle atmosphere, the soldiers in the rear camp who didn't participate in the battle should be hot-blooded and eager to fight. However, right now, a large portion of the soldiers on Yuan Tianji's side who didn't participate in the battle were actually at a loss. They were even bored to death. This portion wasn't a small portion. In fact, it was a very, very large portion. While the battle at the front was in full swing, the shouts of battle shook the heavens and were deafening. However, many soldiers on the other side only raised their heads indifferently and returned to their daydreaming state. It wasn't just the soldiers. Even many of the commanders were distraught like this. There were also some people who gathered together to discuss something, and plan something. No matter what happened outside, they would remain unmoved. Mo Tianji's expression was unusually calm as he watched all of this unfold. There wasn't even the slightest fluctuation. He softly ordered, "Let the public opinion on Mu Tsung-lan's side increase. Then, deliberately create a wave of crazy public opinion," he heavily said. "Complete this within a day." Someone behind him respectfully replied, "Yes." Immediately, that person took out the Tianji Intelligence Department's special communication tool from his spatial ring and solemnly sent out the boss's order. Then, he added a special order symbol at the end of the order. This was the first special order that the boss had sent out. A special order that had never been used before. Immediately, the Tianji Intelligence Department in Mo Yun Tian began to work frantically. This was the first time that the boss had sent out a special order. If they didn't execute it properly, there would be big trouble. Without mentioning anything else, the lowest punishment would be immediate expulsion. Then, where would they find such a good job with such a high salary and no risk? The battle continued. Others might not have calculated the exact number of casualties, but Mo Tianji's mind was constantly calculating the number of people on each side. The 8 sides are fighting together. The total number of battles has reached 10. And it's only noon. Before sunset, charge for 300 battles, Mo Tianji lightly said. Then fight through the night. The next day, continue fighting like this. Make sure that all the people participating in the battle are exhausted. This order was immediately passed down. Even Xie Danqiong, who had been waiting at the side, couldn't help but twitch his eyebrows. In the eyes of outsiders, this intense battle was under the command of Xie Danqiong. But in reality, every time they sent out troops, how they fought, what path they took, what tactics they used, they all came from Mo Tianji's hands. This was truly a large-scale battle of attrition. With only 1/10 of the enemy's forces, they were able to create an unimaginably endless tide of attacks. Yu Qi, who clearly had the absolute advantage in terms of military strength, gradually began to feel as if he couldn't cope. The enemy's attacks were endless and strange. Their attack routes were strange and unpredictable. They completely violated the conventional battle routes. Yu Qi, who was calm and orderly at the beginning, gradually became a little flustered. After a while, he actually became overwhelmed. Then, when night fell, a numb feeling came from his brain. It seemed to be accompanied by waves of pain. Who is the commander of the enemy? Yu Qi's hair stood up in anger. He felt an unbearable pain. It's definitely not Mu Tsung-lan or Xie Danqiong. Motherfucker, is this person crazy? He can actually come up with so many tricks. The generals under his command also frowned and were at a loss of what to do. They couldn't help but admit that the commander of the enemy's army was truly a genius. Even though they were on opposing sides, they couldn't help but admire him. But other than being a genius, he was also a madman. A complete madman. The methods he used were really too crazy. Everyone agreed on one thing. A normal commander would definitely not make the series of decisions he made today. So, this was definitely a madman. Complete and utter insanity that can't be cured. No matter how ingenious and cunning your methods were, the soldiers' stamina would inevitably be depleted if they continued to attack crazily without stopping. Yu Chi's side, from the initial stalemate to the end, was naturally exhausted. But the soldiers of Heavenly Armament Pavilion were more than twice as tired as the people here. There was absolutely no way they could relax at all. They attacked without pause and without rest, but they were definitely not trying to break out of the encirclement. It was just a simple battle of formations. Even if you were a peerless genius and knew how to use ingenious strategies, the end result would still be death. It was because of this that Yu Heng was so furious. You guys are clearly people who are about to die. Why are you still fighting with your lives on the line? Can't you just wait for death? We still have a lot of glory and wealth to enjoy. Who has the strength to fight with you guys to the death? While commanding, Mo Tianji also paid attention to the dense clouds in the sky. There was one cloud. Although it didn't look different from the other clouds, it didn't move much. If one didn't notice it in a short period of time, one would be able to see its uniqueness after observing it for a long time. Since the direction was set, Mo Tianji didn't pay too much attention. He only occasionally raised his neck and twisted it as if he was exercising. Mo Tianji was already sure that the cloud was different from the other clouds. It was Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun's soul power. Mo Tianji's cold eyes revealed a trace of coldness. Going back to my hometown. I came back early to write the second chapter. If I'm late, I'll do it tomorrow. Chapter 23-24. High up in the sky where Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun's Yuan Tianjia's primordial spirit had transformed into a cloud, there was an equally strange cloud. It was drifting silently and occasionally, it would completely disperse and then gather again. Its shape was ever-changing, and it was really no different from an ordinary cloud. The acting skills of this cloud were undoubtedly much better than Yuan Tianjia's. That was the tribulation divine spirit that had transformed into a cloud to monitor Yuan Tianjia's movements from a close distance. It was even secretly absorbing Yuan Tianjia's divine spirit energy. Yuan Tianjia's true cultivation was not below Dong Wangshui Leihan's. Although the tribulation divine spirit had a slight breakthrough recently, it was still far from Yuan Tianjia's. However, purely in terms of the usage of soul energy, the difference between the two was reversed. Yuan Tianjia was far inferior to the tribulation divine spirit. The tribulation divine spirit itself was a soul, and what it cultivated was also a soul body. It specialized in only one aspect, while Yuan Tianjia's divine spirit was inseparable from the physical body. This was the fundamental difference between a living soul and a dead soul. When Yuan Tianjia saw that Mu Tsunglan had taken the initiative to challenge him, and that the battle was so intense, he thought that he had succeeded and began to wantonly absorb the soul energy of this world. But what he never imagined was that the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the Oreo behind. Above him, there was another expert wantonly absorbing his soul energy. Yuan Tianjia didn't know the truth and was still puzzled. Why didn't Mu Tsunglan and the rest send out those experts today to create a storm to disrupt my absorption of the soul energy? Could it be that they are seriously lacking in manpower, and have deployed all of them to the front? That's great. So many people have died below, and the soul energy here is incomparably huge. It's enough for me to recover a lot. I'm so happy. The tribulation divine sense looked down at the celestial arch divine sense down below, and it was so excited that its heart was about to explode. If I can absorb all of this pure soul power, then I'll be able to make a breakthrough in my cultivation base very soon. This is really a heaven-sent opportunity. I'm so happy. Mo Tianji, who was high up, calmly gave orders. He went out with all kinds of strange strategies and gradually turned the entire battlefield upside down. It was incomparably chaotic. The sky gradually darkened, and Emotianji's orders also started to change. The various teams started to weave in and out of battle. From the battlefield they were in now, they weaved in and out of the battlefield. And before this team had completely retreated, another team had already arrived at this location to engage in battle. This gave the enemy an illusion: we haven't retreated yet, and you've sent fresh troops. Our original opponent had gone to rest, but our side didn't get any rest. It was equivalent to a tired army going up against the enemy's fresh army. How could it be any better? This kind of negative feeling of defeat was undoubtedly fatal to an army in the middle of a battle. We clearly have more soldiers than them, so why can they rest but we can't? How do you commanders conduct battles? Don't you care about our lives? His change of heart did not cause the battle to cool down. On the contrary, the battle between the two sides became more and more intense. Before this, the soldiers from both sides were basically from two different camps. Even if they weren't mortal enemies, they could still be considered enemies. At this moment, it was as if they were enemies meeting, and their eyes blazed with hatred. The previous methods of confrontation were mostly limited to the scheming between the politicians and framing each other. It was difficult to have a direct confrontation. Even if no one said anything, they felt that it was not satisfying. Now, they had finally reached the point where blood could splatter 5 steps away from their bodies and turn into een. More and more people fell, and more people joined in. From intact bodies to broken corpses riddled with holes, it only took the blink of an eye. The accumulated grievances of the past many years, let's settle them all today. This sentence was not said by Mu Tsunglan, nor was it said by Yuqi. It was said by an officer under Yuqi who had been fighting with Mu Tsunglan for many years. In the years of fighting, who knew how many lives of Mu Tsunglan's soldiers were buried under his hands? Even the lives of their family members and grandchildren. However, such a person, in such a tragic battle, had a calm expression on his face, without the slightest hint of panic. Shwa shwa shwa. After he killed a wooden soldier, he was immediately cut down by the swarm of swords and sabers of more than a dozen opponents. However, there was not much pain on his face. Instead, he revealed a smile that said, "It's finally over. In fact, all along I knew that I was wrong, but I refused to face it. I didn't dare to face it. It turns out that death is not so terrible. It's a pity that I didn't know before." Before he died, he smiled bitterly and begged, "Let me say a few more words before I die." But he said such words. Yuqi definitely can't do anything big. Marshal Mu's side is right. In fact, I already knew. Yuan Tianji is a demon. In the past, if anyone said this, I would have immediately killed that person. But now, I want to tell you that I actually believed it long ago. It's just that I didn't dare to say it out loud. I was unwilling to say it out loud. If Marshal Mu really wanted to rebel, maybe he would have succeeded hundreds of thousands of years ago. As long as we are old brothers, who doesn't know and understand? But I had no choice. Even if it went against my conscience, even if I was guilty, I still had to persist because Marshal Yu saved my mother. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth as he smiled bitterly. My entire family was destroyed when I was young. Of the entire family, only my mother and I managed to survive. My mother suffered all the hardships of the world for me. When my mother was at the brink of death, it was Marshal Yu who saved her. Before my mother died, she told me not to betray Marshal Yu. I had to be loyal to Marshal Yu. So even though I know it is wrong, I still have to wave my blade at you. I'm sorry. Brothers. His gaze was unfocused, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth as his body slowly collapsed. No matter if you believe me or not, if you are willing to forgive me, it is not important. Actually, I really want to say, if there is a next life, I want to be brothers with people like you. Do not worry, I will also be loyal. In reality, I have truly been loyal in this life, but the person I am loyal to, ha ha. The last grimace disappeared in the wind. His body had already lost its last bit of warmth, turning into a completely cold corpse. The officers and soldiers sighed deeply. In the past, many people hated this person and wanted to kill him as soon as possible. There were also many people who organized people to assassinate him, but they didn't succeed. But now, it seemed like there was nothing left. Nothing was important anymore. There was only that sigh left, and his heart was empty. Just as he had said before the battle, the grudges that had accumulated over so many years, it was time to end them all. When the grudges of this life were truly ended, the people who had died might have nothing left. But who could understand the silent emptiness in the hearts of those who were alive? The battle was still going on. Countless Emoyuntian men were here, spilling their blood freely. In reality, there was no right or wrong at this time. There was only each side, and each master they were loyal to. When they were fighting to the point of forgetting themselves, no one would care if this battle was the so-called battle to slay the Mo. Everyone knew this already, why say more? But this battle was a battle of life and death that had been decided many years ago. They had to fight. They had to fight. They had to fight. The consciousness of a saint was enough to cover the entire battlefield. Many people heard these words. Gu Duxing's gaze dimmed slightly. GMO and the others also sighed because of this. How should I evaluate people like you? I'm really speechless. Xia Danqiong smiled bitterly. The eyes of those sensitive women even turned red. Only Mo Tianji's expression remained unchanged. In fact, it didn't change at all. He even reprimanded everyone's reaction. What's there to sigh about? This is a battlefield. How can there be so many causes and effects? How can there be so many emotions? If you guys have so much time to be sentimental, why don't you put more effort into improving your own cultivation? Those who wave their sabers at me will be killed. Whoever sighs again, get lost quickly. Those who are full of emotions should not enter this battlefield. This guy is a ruthless person with a heart of stone. Why didn't I see it before? Rui Badong complained softly. How is this a heart of stone? Mo Layer said lightly. This is the most basic and correct mentality of a qualified commander, a competent strategist who controls the deployment of all the troops. Could it be that when you're facing an enemy of life and death, you'll hold back and not kill him just because he has his own reasons? But at that moment, a moment of hesitation and empathy can lead to your own death. Showing mercy to the enemy is being cruel to yourself and your own people. Since we're on the battlefield, there shouldn't be any empathy, sympathy, pity, or understanding. There's only life or death. Chulur said lightly. Everyone was silent. Collectively, they looked at this thin, weak, and timid little girl. Those words just now were actually said by this little girl. Could it be that I'm imagining things? Mo Tianji's face suddenly flushed red. It wasn't because he was shy but because he was excited. He was really too excited. Confident. Perhaps there were countless people in the world who could understand, acknowledge and accept Mo Tianji's words just now. But only Chulur's understanding and support could make Mo Tianji so excited. Chapter 23-25. Heavens! Earth! What a miracle! Mo Tianji's face turned red. Mo Tianji exclaimed as if he had discovered a new continent. Get lost! Mo Tianji roared ferociously. His voice was full of meaning, but it was not frightening. Instead, it was filled with anger and helplessness. It was rare to see Mo Tianji like this. Everyone immediately laughed. Mo Tianji did not know how to adjust his expression. He could only restore his indifference and continue to command the battle. However, his spirit seemed to be more focused than before. His commands were faster, more concise, and more powerful. It was as if he was trying his best to show how calm he was in command, how he was strategizing, and how competent he was. Mo Tianji's command became even more elusive under the influence of this kind of peacock spreading its tail. In fact, he was even more meticulous in his planning. This made Slow Rain, who was countering every move, even more miserable. After continuously giving out commands, he only felt that he was seeing stars, and it was hard for him to continue. In this extremely passive mode of dealing with the enemy, he needed to see through the enemy's intentions at every step, and then make a targeted response, before finally obtaining the final victory on the battlefield, especially when facing Mo Tianji. For Yu Qi, this was really too difficult. In the end, he could no longer keep up with Mo Tianji's pace. On the battlefield, the Heavenly Armament Pavilion was still mobilizing their troops in an orderly manner. On the other hand, Yu Qi's side had already sunk into complete chaos. An entire night of fierce fighting was finally over. The Heavenly Armament Pavilion sounded the gong to withdraw their troops. This fierce battle had lasted for an entire day and night. The Heavenly Armament Pavilion had undoubtedly obtained an overwhelming advantage in this high-intensity battle. Mo Tianji had used all kinds of battle formations at the same time, even though the other side had a large number of people. He had used all kinds of battle formations at the same time, and had used them in a crisscross manner. He had used the most advantageous and most effective way to arrange the battle strategy. Moreover, he had forced Yu Qi to the point where he could no longer command. He had actually issued the command: "Fight your own battles and act according to the situation." Such an order. It could be seen how much Mo Tianji had suppressed Yu Qi. Seeing that Mo Tianji had finally retreated back to the camp, ending the long battle of one day and one night, Yulong let out a long sigh of relief. He rubbed the veins on his temples that were about to pop out and said, "This madness is finally fucking over." The generals looked at each other, not knowing how to respond. Less than half a cup of tea's time had passed since Yu Jie's words of relief were spoken. His voice was still ringing in their ears. Unexpectedly, the sound of war drums was heard again from Mo Tianji's side. The Heavenly Armament Pavilion once again lined up neatly and attacked from all directions. The battle was still a battle, an almost uninterrupted battle. Yu Qi's bloodshot eyes revealed a look of disbelief. "Fuck! Again? Avoid the battle today!" Rain shook his head tiredly. No matter if it was a soldier or a general, they could not fight anymore. As for Yu Jiao himself, he had already reached the point where he was completely exhausted. Yu Qi absolutely believed that if he continued to fight with that man for another day and night, he would most likely die from brain congestion. This order to avoid battle was the most suitable one at the moment. The order was instantly sent out. Hearing that they were avoiding battle today, all the generals and soldiers in the camp heaved a sigh of relief. Facing a battle maniac from head to toe, a lunatic, this was not a good feeling. Marshal Yu had finally made a wise choice. They could finally rest for a while. However, right after the order was sent out, the Sky Emperor's reproach immediately reached Yu Qi's ears. "Why are you not going to battle? Avoiding battle? Aren't you destroying the morale of our army? Immediately go to battle! Destroy the enemy as quickly as possible!" Yu Qi groaned and was about to go crazy. My God, however, how could he not listen to His Majesty's orders? If he did not listen, that would be a rebellion. However, His Majesty the Sky Emperor's orders were transmitted through telepathy. In other words, only Yu Qi could hear it. And no one else could hear it. The meaning was very clear. His Majesty the Sky Emperor also knew that he could not fight anymore, but he still had to give the order to go to battle. His Majesty could not afford to lose face, so naturally Yu Qi had to be the scapegoat. The messenger had just returned when he received a new order from Yu Qi. "Order the 3 armies to immediately go to battle." Hearing this order that changed constantly, the messenger, who had always been clever, was dumbfounded on the spot. This was what it meant to change orders from day to night, wasn't it? No, there was still a whole day's time before the order changed. The time it took to change the order was too short. It changed in the blink of an eye? Are you playing with me? Are you fucking kidding me? Just to make me make an extra trip? At this moment, the messenger looked at Yu Qi as if he was looking at a Superman man. "Your sister, is there a fucking commander like you? You just gave the order not to battle today. It had not even been 15 minutes, okay? You changed your mind as soon as it was passed down. What do you want to do? What are you looking at? Is there something wrong with your little eyes?" Yuchi was in a state of extreme depression. He had taken the blame for no reason. How could he not know how stupid his two contradictory orders were? But he could not distinguish them at all. When he saw the messenger's eyes full of doubt, he became even angrier. He was inexplicably indignant. He was so angry that he could not vent his anger. He shouted angrily, "Do you fucking not understand human language? Why aren't you hurrying to pass down the order? Why are you staring at me with your pair of donkey eyes? Is it very big? Fuck! Hurry up and pass down the order!" The messenger never thought that this commander not only did not reflect on his erratic behavior, but also scolded him. Who did I offend? Damn it, my legs are about to break from running to pass down the order, and I even got scolded for no reason. What the fuck is this? With a dark expression, the messenger took the flag and walked out for a second time. He had already cursed Yuchi's 8 generations of ancestors in his stomach. Once the second order was passed down, the army camp was filled with complaints in an instant. What the fuck is going on? When I heard that there was no fighting today, I was still happy. Then, you give the order to fight again. Fuck, are you going to fight or not? That's right, isn't this fucking playing with us? The fucking higher-ups are just moving their mouths. How would they know whether we are dead or alive? Fuck! They just move their mouths, and they dare to say anything. Fuck, I really can't live anymore. If I knew this would happen, I would have gone home to farm. What I hate the most is this kind of erratic behavior. It happened once a few days ago, and it happened again today. Is that bastard playing with me? My fucking ancestors! Is he really crazy? They were all soldiers, and they were full of complaints. When they scolded people, it was not an ordinary kind of vicious. Naturally, they scolded whatever they could to vent their anger. Unknowingly, Yuan Tianji's order made all of Yuchi's ancestors, regardless of whether they were male or female, suffer great misfortune. They all became tools to vent their desires. Complaints were heard everywhere, and the soldiers regrouped to go out to battle. No matter how dissatisfied they were, an order was an order. A soldier's duty was to obey orders. Once an order was given, they had to carry it out no matter how unreliable it was. This was the duty of a soldier, and also the fate of a soldier. But it was also the helplessness of a soldier. If they went out to battle with such a mentality, it was easy to imagine what kind of result it would lead to. Moreover, the difference in command level between their own commanders and the enemy's commanders wasn't just a matter of 1 or 2 streets. Instead, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. There was no comparison. Yuchi mobilized 20 million soldiers to attack from 8 sides with the intention of encircling and annihilating the enemy. But he didn't expect that the enemy would only have 4 million soldiers. In fact, they were almost completely defeated and collapsed. The situation on the battlefield was even more tragic. It was bleak and desolate. So, he had no choice but to mobilize those soldiers who were originally skeptical to fight. Although they also didn't have the heart to fight, they were still able to suppress Mo Tianji's crazy attacks by outnumbering the enemy by several times. When the difference in numbers reached a certain number, even the most outstanding strategy and tactics would be difficult to display when the difference in numbers between the two sides was too big. But the defensive strength of Yuchi's camp was finally reduced in this way. It had almost reached an unprecedented level of emptiness. And this was the situation that Mo Tianji urgently needed to see when he launched the all-out attack at all costs. Mo Tianji finally stopped his meticulous command. Meng Wuya took over. He was dressed the same as Mo Tianji. He was dressed in white, and his long hair was fluttering in the wind. He was sitting upright on a high ground, and was giving instructions. If one didn't look closely, they wouldn't have noticed that the Heavenly Armament Pavilion's commander had changed. Meng Wuya took over the command. Then, he personally experienced the power of Mo Tianji's command in battle. He had some experience when he was watching from the sidelines. But it wasn't as real as experiencing it himself. But he had to assume Mo Tianji's calmness when he stood in this position and took over Mo Tianji's role. It was as if Mo Tianji was in control of the world, and he was calmly giving orders, Meng Wuya sighed from the bottom of his heart. This motherfucker really isn't a job that a human can do. Old Meng has been a commander for dozens of years. I'm confident that I won't lose out to anyone in the world when it comes to leading troops into battle and commanding battles. Right now, I'm just imitating Motianji's style and giving orders. But I'm actually feeling powerless and powerless. There's always someone better than me. Am I, Meng Wuya, so far behind Motianji? Meng Wuya didn't want to admit it in his heart. But it had only been a short while. And he was already having trouble making ends meet. That young man's way of doing things wasn't something that anyone could imitate. But Motianji had already put down his responsibilities at this moment. His white robe fluttered in the wind as he set off with his brothers. They had already crossed the battlefield. Chapter 23-26. Mu Tsenglan and Iluwa were still fighting with all their might in the sky. The sky was dark and the sun and moon were dark. Both of them were fighting with all their might, and the scene was extremely intense. It could be said to be the battle of the century. But for a while, neither of them could do anything to the other. The battle between the two of them had already lasted for 2 days and 1 night. Both of them were exhausted physically and mentally, but their fighting spirit was even higher. They would rather die than retreat. The soul of the Calamity held the Calamity space in its mouth and silently advanced towards Yuan Tianjie's imperial tent from high up in the sky. And Chu Yang and the others were hiding in the Calamity space at this moment. Below them were the painting and calligraphy kings, Mo Yuntian, and the 2 guards. Using their own methods, they gradually advanced and quietly sneaked into the enemy's camp. Although this was a collective sneak attack, the Calamity space was still Chu Yang's biggest secret. Therefore, he could only send in some of his most trusted people to participate in this operation. As for the others, if the slightest bit of information was leaked, even the current Chu Yang would not be able to bear the consequences. Especially now that the holy sage's attitude was ambiguous and his stance was unclear. If he knew that Chu Yang actually had such a heaven-defying item like the Calamity space, it would be equivalent to exposing his strongest trump card in advance. Therefore, Chu Yang had no choice. Below them, the painting and calligraphy kings took the lead and quietly entered the enemy's camp like a breeze. They were only discovered by the guards when they were tens of thousands of feet deep. Countless experts began to appear and intercept them. The painting and calligraphy kings were determined and no longer showed any mercy. They went all out and started a massacre. Yao Huangtian's 2 bodyguards followed beside the 2 of them. The 4 of them were like the sharpest arrows as they charged towards Yuan Tianjie's camp. Along the way, they were thrown off their feet. No one could stop them, not even for a blink of an eye. It must be known that although the cultivation of these 4 people had not reached the level of Diho, in the entire Heaven Imperial Court, excluding Diho, they were equivalent to the most powerful existence in this world. And Mo Yuntian no longer had the so-called 7-star guards. How could he possibly have the power to stop the joint attack of these 4 people? In the blink of an eye, the distance between the 4 of them and Yuan Tianjie's tent had already shrunk to within several hundred zhang. Those who were able to guard near the big tent of Yuan Tianjie's army could be regarded as Yuan Tianjie's confidants. All of them knew that Yuan Tianjie's divine soul was still collecting the soul power of the newly deceased in the sky at this moment, and he probably wouldn't come back in a short time. Only his physical body was in the big tent. As long as these people invaded the tent, Yuan Tianji's physical body would be destroyed in an instant. At that time, Yuan Tianji's identity, as the heavenly demon, would no longer be able to be concealed. Therefore, at this moment, everyone was fighting with their lives on the line. Stop them! Protect His Majesty! Yu Qi finally discovered the hidden danger on this side. He roared and took the lead to fly over. In the blink of an eye, a few more rainbows streaked across the sky and rushed over. Before the person arrived, the tyrannical power that could topple mountains and overturn seas had already arrived with a loud rumble. At this moment, no one was even worried about accidentally injuring their own people. They all attacked with all their strength. Even if half of their own soldiers were destroyed under this kind of power, as long as they could stop these 4 people, it would still be a great achievement. Yuan Tianjie, who was high in the sky, also discovered the crisis here. He was also shocked. The power of his divine soul shook and returned at full speed. At the same time, his divine soul also ordered the heavenly demon troops lying in ambush around the big tent to prepare for battle, just in case. These subordinates were all the confidants of Yuan Tianjie's clan who had followed him for many years. The few leaders were the people who had cooperated with Yuan Tianjie to deal with Crazy Book and the others. Their cultivation had also reached the peak of the Saint Realm. It was precisely because of this that Yuan Tianjie didn't let these people step into the battlefield. He only secretly accompanied them to protect himself in case of an emergency. At this moment, this hidden chess piece finally came in handy. Quan Shu let out a fierce roar and transformed into a 5-colored rainbow, forcibly breaking through all obstructions. His eyes were bloodshot as he charged towards the incomparably gorgeous embroidered tent in the middle. It was as if the tent was a palace. The spring and autumn brush in his hand turned into 2 shocking lightning bolts. They stabbed down fiercely. The surrounding tents immediately flew out in all directions, but they were suppressed by the energy and could no longer stand in place. Seeing the big tent where Yuan Tianjie was, Crazy Book felt as if he saw his wives who had died tragically in the past. At this moment, 1,000,000 years of resentment broke out at the same time, and he almost lost his mind. Crazy Book's attack was about to completely destroy the whole tent and Yuan Tianjie's body. At this moment, a sudden change occurred. A burst of dense black light suddenly rose, and 8 people appeared from all directions. Each of them threw out a palm, and the combined palm force instantly turned into a tough black light curtain, intercepting Crazy Book's attack head-on. These 2 powerful forces collided head-on, and a slight ripple sound was heard. All the destructive forces disappeared in this slight sound. And within a radius of 1,000 feet where the 2 terrifying forces collided, countless black spaces crisscrossed and appeared, as if the whole space suddenly collapsed and shattered at this moment. Crazy Book let out a muffled groan and immediately floated back. But his eyes were wide open, and he roared, "It's really you! You finally appeared!" The person facing him chuckled and said in a strange voice, "Guard Shu, we meet again. You idiot from 1,000,000 years ago, Guard Shu was very happy with your job. Why did you betray me at the last moment? The most ridiculous thing in life is not a moment of stupidity, but a generation of stupidity. Guard Shu, you have already been a fool for a generation. Are you just short of these last few days of your life?" Crazy Book roared, "Common beasts! If I don't kill all of you, I am not human." The 8 people laughed together. "You! Dream on! Me too!" Painting King was bathed in blood, and he flew down from the sky. He did not stop, and actually attacked with all his strength before Crazy Book. He looked up to the sky and shouted, "Big brother, second brother, we brothers will avenge you today!" The 2 great guards of Demon Emperor Heaven had also broken through the layers of obstacles and rushed over. The 4 great guards of the 2 sides joined forces, and their momentum suddenly increased by more than 10 times. The 4 of them did not hesitate and attacked with all their strength. The faces of the 8 people on the other side instantly became incomparably solemn. With a whistling sound, black gas suddenly filled the sky. Thousands of black-clothed and masked people suddenly appeared in the surroundings of this lonely big tent as if they were born out of thin air. After one batch, another batch came, thousands, slowly. This place was actually filled with people. Yuan Tianjie's 1,000,000 years of trustworthy management had already left behind countless hidden sky demon experts by his side, but this time, they surged out violently as if they had emerged from the ground. This was Yuan Tianjie's real army. Moreover, all of them were experts, first-class experts. Even the weakest among them had the cultivation of celestial being. Most of them had reached the peak of celestial being, and there was a small group of dozens of leaders who had the cultivation of saint being. This was undoubtedly an extremely powerful force. These people suddenly appeared, and thousands of them joined forces to face the joint forces of the four kings. However, although thousands of people joined forces, they were still not enough. Everyone rolled on the ground at the same time, and some of them spat out blood. However, the blood that these people spat out was actually black. As soon as the black blood came into contact with the air, it turned into a cloud of black smoke and flew into the sky. And another group of people did not care about the life and death of their companions, and forcibly came up, blocking the path of the four great guards. In the distance, Yu Qi and Mo Yingtian's experts who were madly chasing to protect the emperor saw this situation, and all of them involuntarily stopped in their tracks. Black blood. What was going on? Except for some special poisons, no human would spit out black blood. But now, there was no one using poison at all. But these thousands of people were all spitting out black blood. Why was this? The reason was self-evident. Everyone's eyes looked at the Sky Emperor's big tent at the same time, and their eyes were full of suspicion. Even if they were loyal people, in the face of this situation, they also understood. If there was no substantial evidence before then, could this scene in front of them already be considered as evidence? Everyone, don't hesitate. The most important thing now is to protect His Majesty's safety, Yu Qi shouted angrily. His Majesty is all-encompassing, even if he took in a group of extraterrestrial demons as his servants. What's so strange about that? Where did all of you get so many doubts? Could it be that His Majesty's contribution to Mo Yingtian in these million years is not worth a few wisps of smoke? At this moment, the four kings were already fighting with the countless extraterrestrial demon army in front of them. The four of them attacked with all their might, slaughtering large swathes of heavenly demons in an instant. They went on a killing spree. The four of them all remembered Xu Yang's instructions, to do their best to kill all the extraterrestrial demon guards. But the other party had tens of thousands of them, and none of them were mediocre. How could it be easy to kill all of them? The corpses on the ground kept turning into black smoke, but Yuan Tianjie's big tent was still unmoved. At this moment, Yuan Tianjie's divine soul had already rushed to within 10,000 feet. Under full-speed movement, no one could see that Yuan Tianjie had returned. At this moment, a young girl in white suddenly appeared in the sky above Yuan Tianjie's big tent. She abruptly waved her hand at the critical moment, and then disappeared again. For some reason, Yuan Tianjie's divine soul plunged down just like that. Yuan Tianjie's originally traceless divine soul suddenly emitted a green hazy light, and he howled painfully, saying angrily, "Who used the soul poison? I'm going to kill you!" The soul poison was the fiercest and most vicious poison among all poisons in the Heaven Palace Tower. It had always been a taboo poison in the Heaven Imperial Court, and this method had been lost for millions of years. Chapter 23-27. If one wanted to use this poison, apart from the fact that one's cultivation had to at least reach celestial being peak B, one also needed to use one's own soul power as a guide. After using this technique once, the user would not be able to use it a second time within 3 years. The conditions for using this technique were so harsh, so the effects were naturally extremely shocking. Chu Lur was already going all out. Once this poison was used, as long as it was attached to the divine spirit, the attached divine spirit would immediately fester, turning into green smoke and gradually dissipating. It was extremely difficult to get rid of it. However, the target this time was Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun, Yuan Tianjie, a heavenly demon king. Even the four great guards in Chu Lur, who had poisoned him, weren't sure if it would work or how effective it would be. But there was one thing that everyone could be sure of now: even if this technique could not kill Yuan Tianjie, at the very least, it would definitely have an effect. It would definitely be effective. Because the effect had already started to take effect. Yuan Tianjie's divine spirit emitted a green light under the effect of the soul poison. Then, it emitted even more green smoke, showing that the soul poison was already taking effect. Under this kind of injury, even Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun could not help but spasm a little. With a fierce roar, he stopped flying forward. With a roar, the green light around his body suddenly flourished and then suddenly dissipated. It became invisible and traceless. The world-shocking soul poison actually only had an effect on a super-expert like Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun with just a roar from Yuan Tianjie. And a part of his divine spirit power dissipated. The soul poison had already completely lost its effect. Furthermore, this was under the premise that he was originally seriously injured. If his divine spirit had not been injured previously, it would be hard to determine what the result would be today, or even whether it would be effective. Chu Yang and the others couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when they saw this situation. For the first time, they witnessed the true strength of someone at De's level. He was actually so strong. And right at this moment, the 4 guards who were fighting on the ground jumped up at the same time, completely ignoring the fact that they were being attacked by tens of thousands of enemies at the same time. They removed all their defenses and turned all their cultivation into one attack. Even their favorite weapons flew out of their hands like shooting stars chasing after the moon, piercing into the green light in the sky. Until now, this was only the first step of Mo Tianji's demon-slaying plan. Yuan Tianjie's spirit was only one step away from entering the tent and returning to its original position. But at this moment, the joint attack of the 4 great experts had already arrived without any regard for their own safety. Furthermore, it had completely sealed off any space that could be dodged. However, under the relentless attacks of the heavenly demons, the 4 experts who had completely given up on defending themselves trembled. Fresh blood flowed from their bodies, and pieces of flesh flew into the air. Both of them had used all of their cultivation in a single blow to destroy their souls, causing them to be unable to recover for a short period of time, which meant that they had lost all ability to resist. Let the enemy attack them wantonly, let them be fish on the chopping board. And with so many members of the heavenly devil horde on the ground, which one of them wasn't a veteran who had experienced hundreds of battles? How could he give up such a heaven-sent opportunity to annihilate the enemy? After a single strike, the 4 of them were almost dismembered by a flurry of blades. However, there was a loud roar in the air. Formless, traceless, and traceless, an awe-inspiring sword ray and an awe-inspiring saber ray fell at the same time, protecting the 4 experts within the sword chi and saber ray. It was Gu Duxing's sword and Dong Wushang's saber. They attacked at the same time. According to Mo Tianji's initial plan, there was no protection of the swords and sabers at all. Instead, the 4 guards would be sacrificed at this moment. If they could self-destruct, the effect would be even better. This way, it would be more helpful for everyone to focus on attacking Yuan Tianjie's spirit. However, at this moment, everyone unanimously chose to help the 4 guards. Yuan Tianjie could be killed again. However, if the 4 great protectors were to die here, they would die forever. They would never give up on their companions. Faced with such an outcome, Mo Tianjie could only sigh helplessly. In fact, everyone didn't know that to destroy the spirit of an expert like Yuan Tianjie, who had already reached the peak level, it would only be effective if it was an expert who had also reached the peak level of saint level. And Dong Wushang and Gu Duxing's current cultivation hadn't reached that level yet. Even if they forcefully attacked, it wouldn't have any effect. Instead, it would only be a waste of energy. With the protection of the saber and sword, the 4 experts finally got a chance to catch their breath. In a breath's time, new energy was regenerated. Their bodies emitted a holy white light, and the injuries they suffered earlier were quickly healed. The self-recovery ability of a peak-level saint-level expert could be quite exaggerated. But Yuan Tianjie, who was in the air, didn't have such good treatment. The 4 experts used up almost all of their cultivation to launch a fatal blow, and it was without any tricks. Yuan Tianjie's spirit let out a sharp roar, spinning rapidly in the air like a whirlwind, wanting to dodge. Although his spirit was strong now, it didn't have any attack power. He could only dodge. But at this moment, the space around him had been sealed off by the 4 great protectors. Although Yuan Tianji's spiritual energy was stronger than any of the 4 great protectors, and even though he was in a sealed space, he could still dodge to a certain extent, but there was always a limit. Even after dodging with all his might, he could only barely avoid 2 of the attacks. The other 2 attacks, however, were completely undisguised and directly passed through his soul avatar with a loud bang. Then, a burst of black smoke rose. Yuan Tianji's divine soul let out an extremely sharp and miserable howl. Suddenly, his entire divine soul broke into pieces and scattered in all directions. At the same time, there was an angry roar in the tent. The whole tent suddenly fell apart. Yuan Tianjie, who was wearing a yellow robe, broke through the top of the tent with a murderous aura. He appeared in the air and roared, "A bunch of insects, you have finally angered me!" Yuan Tianjie's spirit finally returned to his body after being severely injured. However, this attack caused Yuan Tianming to suffer extremely serious injuries. Tribulation Spirit was talking in the tribulation space. "In terms of spirit power alone, with your martial arts, it's useless against a peak spirit like Yuan Tianjie. Moreover, Yuan Tianjie left his body on his own accord, and his physical body was not destroyed. He has a little foundation left in the depths of his body. So, other than the 4 experts who can cause considerable damage to him, your attacks won't work at all. If we want to destroy Yuan Tianjie completely, we have to start from his physical body. First, we have to destroy his physical body and remove the source of his soul. Then, we have to obliterate his soul. That is the right way, and the only way." Tribulation Spirit's words made Mo Tianji feel guilty. If everyone really attacked together at all costs just now, they would have directly attacked his spirit. That way, it would definitely cause the 4 experts to sacrifice themselves. If they really did that, it would be an irreparable sacrifice. And it would be a sacrifice that would have no effect at all. But this had nothing to do with Mo Tianji's command. It was because his cultivation was not high enough that he could not see it. However, what made Mo Tianji blame himself even more was that as the strategist of this calamity, all the plans and arrangements had to be meticulous. He and his brother's current strength was actually completely harmless to Yuan Tianjie's soul, but he actually didn't know about it at all. Such a major mistake that was serious enough to ruin this operation actually happened to him. If it were not for his brothers being benevolent and saving the 4 experts, his plan this time could be considered a complete failure. There was nothing wrong with using military tactics, but being completely rational and losing the heart of a benevolent person was not necessarily desirable. Mo Tianji reminded himself of this fact. If that's the case, if we can't completely destroy Yuan Tianjie's physical body, then isn't he immortal? Chu Yang frowned. Not really. Tribulation Spirit said. The main reason you can't destroy his spirit is that your own spirit cultivation is not high enough. If your spirit cultivation is similar to Yuan Tianjie's, or even higher, it would be easy to destroy his spirit. On the other hand, if your cultivation is not high enough, it is impossible to destroy his spirit. Originally, the spirit is the weakest part of an ordinary cultivator. Even if it is shrouded in sunlight for a long time, there is a possibility of it being damaged. But for Yuan Tianjie's spirit, needless to say, is solidified. What's more frightening is that as a world, as a celestial emperor, his luck is really too strong. The divine soul of calamity also said with a wry smile. Unless it's an existence like Yuan Tianji, only then can they have the ability to destroy his divine soul. Apart from that, it's easier said than done to kill His Majesty the Celestial Emperor who has enjoyed the fortune of the world for millions of years. Chu Yang, Mo Tianji, and the others smiled bitterly at each other. Similar to Yuan Tianjie? Or perhaps it was someone who was stronger than him. Looking at the entire Heaven Imperial Court, how many people like this could there be? Perhaps 1,000,000 years ago, there wasn't much of a difference between a 7-star guard and a celestial emperor. But 1,000,000 years later, a 7-star guard's cultivation hadn't made much progress. They were only using their own cultivation to protect the destiny of a celestial emperor. And celestial emperors, as the masters of their respective worlds, enjoyed this kind of luck on their bodies. After 1,000,000 years of accumulation, they had already far surpassed it. What could 1,000,000 years of luck achieve? That was something unimaginable. Perhaps, in the Heaven Imperial Court, the only ones who could destroy Yuan Tianjie in a normal state were Di and Holy Monarch Solipsism. Finally, Yuan Tianjie's spirit was damaged because of the previous incident. And recently, Mo Yuntian's luck is also dissipating. As long as Yuan Tianjia is unable to completely quell the rebellion, it will be difficult for his luck to recover. So now, this is the only time you can destroy Yuan Tianjia. Chapter 23-28. And this opportunity is not for a long time. It definitely won't exceed half a year. After half a year, if you still can't completely eliminate Yuan Tianjia, who is in a weakened state, then everything will return to Yuan Tianjia's strongest state. Because Yuan Tianjia can completely rely on his many years of accumulation to reform the 7-star guards. As long as the flow of providence returns to normal, then you won't have the chance to kill him anymore. The soul of Calamity grinned and added, I'm talking about us. Because after all, we have 1,000,000 years less of the power of providence than Yuan Tianjia. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. Maybe cultivation can be accelerated, but there's absolutely no possibility of it being accelerated when it comes to the accumulation of providence. Below, Yuan Tianjia had already flown down and launched a fierce attack on the 4 guards. And of the tens of thousands of heavenly demon army, half of them disappeared in an instant. The remaining ones also gradually disappeared. Only a few dozen commanders with higher cultivations were still fighting alongside Yuan Tianjia. And under the illumination of Yuan Tianjia's emperor's light, everywhere he went was filled with divine radiance, majestic and inviolable. As if the demonic aura just now was just an illusion. The majesty of heaven and earth swept across the world. Even the entire battlefield outside was filled with the majestic aura of the Emperor's heavenly majesty. Under such a majestic atmosphere, no one would doubt that the heavenly Emperor who appeared now was actually a heavenly demon. Yuan Tianjia used the power of providence to create an atmosphere to conceal his true self. The divine spirit saw through it at a glance. If we have to attack, now is the time. Following the divine spirit's words, Chu Yang immediately ordered, Move out! There was a loud boom. Chu Yang, Mo Tianji, Gu Duxing, Dong Wushang, Rui Butong, Ao Xianyun, Xia Danxiong, GMO, Luo Kadi, Tan Tan, Mo Qingwu, Zi Xieching, Mo Lei and Brother Hu. They rushed out of the tribulation space together. From the void, they suddenly appeared. The moment they attacked, it was a fatal blow. Attack together. Attack together. And the location they chose was the area where the 4 guards were fighting Yuan Tianjia. Because at this time, in order to avoid suspicion, Yuan Tianji had ordered the Sky Demon Army to retreat. In truth, apart from the several dozen commanders, the other members of the Celestial Demon Horde were unable to harm the 4 protectors at all. They were just cannon fodder, and forcefully using their own karmic luck would only consume a large amount of karmic luck. It was not worth it. If they only used the several dozen commanders, their efficiency would undoubtedly be much higher, which was why the entire Celestial Demon Horde had fled. As for the army experts in the distant reign, they had yet to arrive. There was still 1 breath of time left. Even further away, Iluowa was currently engaged in an earth-shattering battle with Mu Tsanglan. She couldn't even spare a hand. This was their only chance. Moreover, the location and distance that Mo Tianji had chosen to attack were extremely vicious. Mo Tianji was confident, even if it's a deity. At this moment, he was caught off guard. There was absolutely no time to react. Because this is the only, last, chance. If they couldn't grasp this opportunity, this operation would be a failure. Tribulation unification! Sword master heaven and earth! Mo Tianji let out a shout. 1 ray of cold light pierces 10,000 feet, so what if we slaughter the entire world? Chu Yang roared and took the lead to attack. Attack! 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 At the same time, it was also a signal. When the 4 protectors heard this, they all roared and once again split into 4 sides, attacking crazily with all their might. They left Yuan Tianjia in the middle. The 4 of them each dealt with 1 side, using all their cultivation to force all the celestial demon experts who were currently participating in the encirclement dozens of feet away in an instant. There was only 1 person within 1,000 feet radius. Yuan Tianjie. Furthermore, there were terrifying attacks coming from all directions. More than 100 saint experts were outside, and tens of millions of troops were fighting for their lives. 4 peak experts were risking their lives. It was all to create a vacuum in their hearts at this moment. Now, they had finally succeeded. In the blink of an eye, sword energy swept across the sky. A round sword energy light pillar, bright and dazzling, shot towards Yuan Tianjie. The distance was less than 100 feet. It was Chu Yang, using all his cultivation to unleash the strongest killing intent of the Tribulation Sword. So what if we slaughter the entire world? He didn't hold back at all. An all-out attack. On the other side, another proud and aloof sword energy activated its own heavenly chi and came over mightily. Gu Duxing's black dragon sword activated the heavenly sword technique, and he and his sword turned into lightning. Even though it was daytime, it illuminated the entire world. A viburnum flower suddenly bloomed in the sky. In a dazzling place, endless killing intent was displayed together. Viburnum flower, Xia Danqiong. A huge golden hand, mixed with a majestic aura that could control the entire world, suddenly appeared in the sky. It fiercely slapped down towards Yuan Tianjie. Mo Tianji. This was the first time that Mo Tianji had truly made a move. The commotion caused by this move had left all the brothers in shock. They didn't expect that this guy who liked to talk big on the outside was actually so strong and shocking. Tianwu, a dance of heaven and earth. Her red dress was like a dream, and her red ribbon fluttered in the sky, bringing about a kind of illusory beauty, but also an unusually dense killing intent. Mo Qingwu. Mo Qingwu's lithe and graceful body followed Chu Yang like a shadow. Everywhere she went, the sky and the earth were dyed red. Her delicate body actually didn't use any strength at all, and she simply attached herself to Chu Yang's energy. When Chu Yang advanced, she advanced. When Chu Yang retreated, she retreated. Life and death together. When you advance, I advance. When you retreat, I retreat. When you live, I live. When you die, I die. Amidst 2 roars, GMO and Luokadi, one on the left and one on the right, used the technique of becoming one with the sword, and rushed over at high speed. The 2 people who were only at the level of saints now actually transformed into 2 long rainbows that could only be transformed by peak-level saints. The next moment, a dragon's roar reverberated in midair, and a phoenix's cry soared into the sky. A dragon and a phoenix, flying like a dragon and dancing like a phoenix, similarly carried a tyrannical power that shook the heavens and earth, and both of them rushed down from the sky at the same time. A black sword shadow, as if wanting to chase back the time that had passed 1,000 years ago, silently rushed into Yuan Tianjie's protective vital energy. Silently, without a trace, without a life. It was Mo Layer's unparalleled assassination technique. The fastest, however, was another white figure. Xi Xieching. A pair of slender jade-like hands blossomed like flowers at this moment, turning into tens of thousands of swords that seemed to have materialized. Every sword had the might of the person and the sword as one, slashing towards Yuan Tianjie. Condensing chi into swords, 10,000 swords, 10,000 lives. Even Chu Yang was taken aback by such an astonishing power. So this was Big Sister Zi's true trump card. In the face of such a large-scale and indiscriminate attack, she believed that even if she gave it her all, she might not be able to withstand it. However, this was a killer move that was filled with killing intent. No matter what, Xi Xieching would not use it on herself. Chu Yang finally understood why Xi Xieching refused to fulfill her promise even though he had forced her into a disadvantageous position countless times. So that was the truth. Just as Xi Xieching was closing in at high speed and unleashing her killing moves to her heart's content, a white shadow flashed in her arms again. Brother Hu rushed out like lightning, and his small body was attached to Yuan Tianji's body in a flash. Her body was still so petite, but when she opened her mouth, it became as big as a millstone and bit down viciously. In the face of such a peak expert, Brother Hu gave up all his technical attacks, and chose the purest and most primitive instinctive attacks. Returning to the basics, simplifying the complicated. Since technical attacks could not destroy Yuan Tianji's divine spirit, then he would use the purest instinctive attacks. Even if it was just a bite of his flesh, it would also cause Yuan Tianji unbearable pain. Any bit of flesh from Yuan Tianji's body would be a great nourishment for Brother Hu. Finally, the sharpest attack also arrived. A black smoke made a painful hissing sound in the middle, but it wrapped tightly around Yuan Tianji's neck. Tribulation Divine Spirit. Although his cultivation was much weaker than Yuan Tianji's, only Tribulation Divine Spirit could turn into smoke and wrap around him. At this moment, Tribulation Divine Spirit also went all out. How could the backlash of a heavenly emperor be small? Tribulation Sword Master. Tribulation Brother. In this tiny gap that Mo Tianji painstakingly created, he used all of his strength to launch a fatal attack on Heavenly Emperor Mo Yuan Tianjie. At this moment, the sky changed color, and the clouds also dissipated. The entire space suddenly became as dark as ink. Nothing could be seen, and only extreme darkness could be heard. Yuan Tianji, the Heavenly Emperor of Ink Cloud, let out a long roar that shook the world. It also contained the taste of endless pain. Tribulation as one, Sword Master of Heaven and Earth. Although this sentence had never been spread in the Heavenly Imperial Court, this was an unshakable legend. Now, Tribulation and Sword Master, each of them had reached the cultivation of saint level and above. Chu Yang, who was the Sword Master, and Gu Duxing, who was the first in Tribulation, had reached the level of saint level. Tribulation as one, under the guidance of Chu Yang's heart, and under Mo Tianji's stars orbiting the heavenly sun, the power of Tribulation and Tribulation were perfectly combined. Although the attacks were launched from different directions, each attack contained the huge power of Tribulation as one whole. The power of this whole body had already perfectly surpassed the power of Tribulation as one. It was another sublimation. Although this kind of power could not be compared to Di's peak cultivation, but, compared to the severely injured Heavenly Emperor of Ink Cloud, Yuan Tianji, it was not inferior. Moreover, there was also a Mo Layer, Zi Xieching, Brother Hu and the rest joining forces. At this moment, even Zi Xieching, Mo Layer and the rest who were in the situation felt that the power of these 10 people was perfect and inseparable. No one could interfere. Even gods could not be separated. In the sky, after Yuan Tianji's tragic roar, a pitch-black ball of light suddenly appeared. It surrounded Yuan Tianji's body. The holy, mighty, and glorious aura of a moment ago had suddenly turned into an extremely evil aura. Chapter 23-29. As far as the eye could see, that was an extremely special evil aura, as if it wanted to devour. It was like heaven. The darkness that reached the extreme emitted a kind of extreme black luster instead. When the darkness reached the end, it was actually no different from the light. That black halo was like a solid and unbreakable circle, blocking and shielding all the attacks outside the halo. Chu Yang and the rest poured all of their mental and physical strength into this fatal blow, maintaining the rhythm and posture of an all-out attack. Flying down from the sky, the sharp point pointed directly above this halo. All of his explosive power was concentrated on that one point. He persevered, trying to break through the black light circle. However, all the attacks fell into an incomparably strange stalemate at this moment. In that black halo that reached the extreme, one could clearly see an almost transparent figure, currently looking outside the halo with a ferocious face. That was Yuan Tianjie. But the current Heavenly Emperor Mo Yuan was no longer that mighty and glorious emperor of the past, full of noble spirit, a monarch of a generation who ruled the world. Instead, it was a strange creature that everyone had never seen before, filled with a strange atmosphere. Those streaks of black light that seemed to have condensed into substance were precisely emitted from that strange creature's body continuously. It made him look like a huge hedgehog covered with black light thorns all over his body. His face seemed to be convulsing due to some kind of extreme pain, as if there was something strange that wanted to rush out from under that face. Finally, under the continuous flashing of a ball of black light, that black halo gradually showed signs of breaking. Under the all-out desperate attacks of Chu Yang and the rest, Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun, who suffered heavy injuries to his divine soul time and time again, and also suffered soul poisoning and a great loss of cultivation, finally reached the brink of life and death. Once this last barrier was broken, Yuan Tianjie would die without a doubt. Seeing that the opportunity to determine victory was already in front of him, Chu Yang roared, "Break!" At the same time, without any more words or gestures, all the brothers spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time, all squeezing out the life force in their bodies once again, forcing out the last bit of potential. All in one battle! All in one attack! Brother Tiger roared. The instinctive attack of his main body succeeded. Not only did he bite through the halo, he even bit Yuan Tianjie's waist. Black blood instantly overflowed. Yuan Tianjie let out another miserable groan. The black halo around him gradually dissipated, and it looked like it was about to completely shatter. If he had been at his peak, he would have simply ignored such an attack and would not have been able to deal any damage. But now, he didn't even have half of his peak strength, and his divine soul was even less than a tenth of it. Even the power of providence that he relied on as his last protective barrier had been destroyed, and he was powerless to carry on. Mo Tianji had made all kinds of arrangements before. First, he used the army to draw away Yuan Tianjie's main forces. Then, he sent out a large number of experts to fight with all their might. Then, the 4 Seven Stars Guards joined forces to attack. The 4 peak experts attacked Yuan Tianjie with all their might. Finally, Yuan Tianjie was seriously injured. In the end, Tribulation attacked with all his might, making the ultimate blow that decided the outcome of the battle, because Chu Yang's Tribulation sword had the ability to devour. Layers upon layers of schemes interlocked, pressing forward step by step, finally forcing this insufferably arrogant Heavenly Emperor in Cloud to the brink of life and death. If he still insisted on not revealing his identity, then only death awaited him. If his identity was exposed, then he would also have to accept the tragic fate of being abandoned by everyone. Yuan Tianjie was extremely conflicted at this moment. He had painstakingly worked for millions of years, and finally, he was about to be put to good use. But at this crucial moment, he encountered such a thing. Grievance, unwillingness, anger, humiliation, and all kinds of negative emotions welled up in his heart. If he had a choice, he would definitely not be willing to reveal his identity. Even if many heavenly demon soldiers had already appeared, which meant that he had already been exposed, Yuan Tianjie still had a way to deal with it. Just as Yu Qiqi had said, as a heavenly emperor, how big of a deal was it to subdue some heavenly demon slaves? As long as this matter was over, he could even reverse the situation. He could say that Mu Tsanglan and the others were spreading rumors, and turn this matter into a small matter. But at this moment, all of his wishful thinking could not be carried out. Because Yuan Tianjie had already realized that if he was conflicted and unwilling to reveal his identity as a heavenly demon and the strength of the heavenly demon's main body, what awaited him was only death. Since he had already made up his mind, there was no more hesitation. Yuan Tianjie suddenly roared angrily, "You force me to do this!" With a roar, the wind and clouds suddenly changed. It was clearly a clear blue sky, but suddenly, lightning flashed and thunder roared, and the light of dawn disappeared. In the extremely dark black light, Yuan Tianji's facial muscles finally spasmed more and more violently. Suddenly, he roared, and the yellow robe covering his body instantly turned into pieces and flew away. The Tribulation divine soul that had been entangling him suddenly let out a scream, feeling a huge force that was completely irresistible burst out from Yuan Tianji's body. For a moment, he had no room to resist at all. Before he could even think, he had already been sent flying far away. 2 extremely strange horns also bulged out from Yuan Tianji's forehead in a daze. With the appearance of these 2 horns, Yuan Tianji's appearance became completely unfamiliar, ferocious and terrifying to the extreme. In the middle of his forehead, a strange sun-like shape also appeared, as if a third eye had appeared, but it was filled with an indescribable evil aura. On his back, 12 bare fleshy wings were spread out on both sides. Yuan Tianji's true body had appeared, so he naturally no longer had any scruples in his actions. He immediately counterattacked. His eyes shot out an extremely evil black light, and he suddenly roared, "Open for me!" With a loud bang, the black light that had already shown cracks before completely exploded in an instant. The violent explosive force rushed out in all directions, like a hot knife through butter. Chu Yang and the others all let out a muffled groan, and all fell back. Everyone spat out blood, and they looked at the monster in front of them in shock. No one had expected that when Yuan Tianji's true body appeared, the power he could exert would actually be so great. In front of them, a monster with fleshy wings, 2 evil horns, 3 eyes, and a body covered in horny scales appeared in the sky. He looked up to the sky and roared, his voice almost shaking the world. "Despicable humans! Despicable reptiles! You force me to do this! You force me to do this!" He looked up to the sky and howled. His voice was like the howl of a hungry wolf, and it was filled with extreme anger. "You guys laid out layers upon layers of schemes, and finally made me reveal my true body. Are you satisfied now? Ha ha! You despicable humans, since you want to see my true body so much, I'll fulfill your wish. All of you will definitely become the #1 sacrifice for me to show myself. I won't let any of you off." When Chu Yang and the others fell back due to Yuan Tianji's powerful counterattack, Yuqi led the Mo-Yuntian army and just happened to arrive in front of them. At this juncture, as long as they made a move, they could easily snipe the retreating Chu Yang and the others. But at this moment, none of the Mo-Yuntian army experts made a move. Everyone looked at Yuan Tianji, who was in the sky in a daze. Their minds were in a mess, filled with anger and shame. It turned out that the Emperor was really a heavenly demon. It turned out that we were really helping the heavenly demon to do evil? This thought suddenly filled everyone's heart. It turned out that what Commander Mu said was true. What they did was right. It turned out that not only did we serve the heavenly demon for a lifetime, in the end, we were actually helping the heavenly demon to slaughter our own people, sacrificing the lives of tens of millions of soldiers and generals in vain. Each and every one of us were actually stupid beyond compare, sinners who had gone against the tide of history. If our various actions now were to be recorded in the history books in the future, how would the future generations evaluate us? To put it nicely, we were blinded by the heavenly demon and didn't have the intention to do evil. To put it bluntly, we were helping the heavenly demon to do evil, and caused endless trouble. Of course, it could also be that we were willing to be the heavenly demon's falsehounds, causing great trouble, deceiving our own people, and killing our own people, leaving behind a bad name for millions of years. How could we still raise our heads in Mo-Yuntian? The moment Yuan Tianji revealed his heavenly demon true body, the entire battlefield suddenly became dead silent. Heaven and earth were also silent. At this moment, even the soldiers of the 2 armies who were immersed in the battle also stopped fighting. One by one, they turned their heads and looked over in astonishment. When they saw Yuan Tianji's ferocious demonic behavior, a huge wave of anger rose in everyone's hearts. Heavenly demon! He was really a heavenly demon! Chu Yang wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and the sword in his hand flashed again. He floated in the air and said lightly, "Yuan Tianji, I want to know your real name. I believe that even in the heavenly demon clan, you are also a person of great status. You don't want us to call you a demon child, right?" Yuan Tianji's whole body was filled with black light, spreading out. He looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. "Since things have come to this, and there's no turning back, I might as well let you stupid humans die with understanding. I'm the Heavenly Demon Clan's king of flying demons." Heavenly Demon Clan's flying demons. Yuqi's whole body couldn't help but tremble. Her eyes were full of confusion and disbelief, and there were even tears in her eyes. As if in a dream, she murmured in a trembling voice, "Your Majesty, are you really a heavenly demon? This can't be real. Why?" When this sentence came out, everyone who heard it all glared at Yuqi angrily. Chapter 2330. Yuan Tianji's eyes flashed with an inexplicable look, and he said lightly, Yuqi, you are loyal to me, this king naturally knows. No matter what my identity is, as long as you are willing to continue to be loyal to me, this king can guarantee that you will still have a meteoric rise in the future and bring glory to the future generations. Even becoming the new emperor of this world is not a difficult thing. As long as you are still willing to be loyal, it is such a simple choice. Yuqi swallowed and said listlessly, So you really are a heavenly demon? For a moment he seemed to have lost his soul. Yuan Tianji's eyes turned to Chu Yang and the others. He was about to attack when he suddenly heard Yuqi's heart-wrenching cry. Since you are a heavenly demon, then why did you save my life back then? Yuan Tianji suddenly turned back and looked at Yuqi. Yuqi had already become frantic. He roared crazily. His voice was mournful, as if his heart was weeping blood. It was as if his internal organs had long been turned into ashes, turned into powder. That kind of pain. Since you are a heavenly demon, then why did you take me as your disciple? Teach me skills? Since you are a heavenly demon, then since you expelled me from your sect, why did you still stay in the Mayan Sky Army and continue to be loyal to you? Why didn't you just let me die? Wasn't that good? Wasn't it good to let me leave? Why did you lie to me all this time, to make me be loyal to you, for you, I am willing to do anything, why? Why are you really a heavenly demon? Yuqi shouted loudly and questioned loudly. Her voice was filled with pain and contradiction. Tears streamed down his face. The army had always known that Marshal Yu's origins were mysterious, but no one would have thought that Yuqi was Yuan Tianji's disciple. And Yuan Tianji, other than the master-disciple relationship, had also shown great kindness to Yuqi. Yuan Tianji's eyes looked at Yuqi for a long time. He sighed and said, It seems that you are not willing to continue to be loyal to me? I am willing to be loyal to you. Yuqi suddenly burst into tears. I am willing to be loyal to you no matter what. But you are a heavenly demon, you are a heavenly demon. How can I continue to be loyal to you? He trembled and wept bitterly. That was a kind of extreme despair. Yuan Tianji nodded slowly and said, Good, good. Good. He said good 3 times in a row, each word heavier than the previous one. He laughed strangely and said, Since you've made your choice, your position is clear. Words are like the wind, it's too late to regret. I didn't expect you to betray me in the end. Ha ha. You humans really deserve to die. None of them should live. All of you deserve to die. Why did you save me when my family was destroyed? Yulai asked painfully. Why did you save me? As a heavenly demon, how can you be so kind-hearted? Yuan Tianji coldly stood in the air and said, The reason why I saved you. It's very simple. It's because I'm the cause of your family's destruction. What? What did you say? Yuqi suddenly took a step back and staggered. His mouth was wide open as if he was struck by lightning. He looked at Yuan Tianji in disbelief. Haven't I made myself clear enough? I was the one who killed your father. I was the one who killed your mother. Yuan Tianji laughed loudly. Who told them to unintentionally discover that I have heavenly demon qi and become suspicious of my identity? Ha ha. If I didn't kill them, wouldn't they be a threat to me? As for you, I only wanted a kind of feeling. That's why I chose to accept you as my disciple and taught you martial arts. Later on, I kicked you out because you're not worthy to be my direct disciple. As for letting you come back to be my servant, you must really want to know why all of this is, right? Yuqi asked in a daze. Why? Why? At this moment, his heart was already filled with great shock and disbelief. Everything was turned upside down in an instant. He only felt that he was in a nightmare right now. Everything wasn't real. He actually forgot his sadness and anger. He was just mumbling to himself instinctively. Because I want this kind of feeling, I kill the person's entire family. He has a blood feud with me, but I want this person to be my servant. The more respectful he is to me without knowing the truth, the more he sings my praises every day, the happier and happier I feel. Ha ha. Yuan Tianji looked up to the sky and laughed. Watching someone serve their greatest enemy wholeheartedly, kneel down and worship him every day, and still enjoy it even after becoming a slave, never getting tired of it, what a great pleasure this is. What an achievement this is. This is my greatest enjoyment, my greatest source of happiness, ha 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 ha. Yu Qi, who originally suspected that he was in a nightmare, trembled all over when he heard these words. His turbid and lifeless eyes suddenly regained their sharpness. His entire person sank into a state of near insanity. He muttered, "Is the truth actually like this? Is it really like this?" He suddenly roared, "You despicable person who's worse than a pig or a dog! You inhuman demon child! Yuan Tianjie, fuck your old mother! I'm going to kill you, ah!" With a violent roar, Yu Qi's entire person flew up and rushed towards Yuan Tianjie's location. At this moment, Yu Qi's entire body actually turned into a stream of light. He didn't even use a weapon. He just rushed out barehanded like this, gritting his teeth and rushing forward without any hesitation. Yu Qi's life, his life's goal, his life's belief, all collapsed with a loud bang at this moment, completely disintegrating. No one stopped him, but everyone knew that apart from death, there was no other path for Yu Qi to take now. Perhaps, dying in Yuan Tianjie's hands in a fighting posture was already the best ending for Yu Qi. Perhaps Yu Qi rushing over was not for revenge, but just to seek a quick death. A very strange expression also flashed through Yuan Tianjie's eyes, but he didn't hesitate at all. Looking at Yu Qi rushing closer, one of his hands suddenly turned into a strange black smoke. He chuckled strangely and said, "You want to slay the demon with just you? You want to be a hero with just you?" The black smoke spread rapidly, and instantly enveloped Yu Qi's entire body. Yuan Tianjie raised his hand and slapped down towards Yu Qi's head. Obviously, he intended to kill him and end this karma with one palm. However, the moment it landed, there was a sudden very short pause. That was definitely a pause that shouldn't exist. It was very short, almost undetectable. Just because of that pause, more than 100 palms from Yu Qi, which were almost crazy, all landed on Yuan Tianjie's body during this short pause. Yuan Tianjie let out a strange cry and suddenly spat out a mouthful of black blood. A few cracking sounds came from all over his body, as if a few of his bones were broken because of this. He shouted angrily, "Evil creature!" A palm slapped down. Pa! Yu Qi's head exploded into a bloody mist just like that. However, the body that had already lost its head did not stop moving forward. Two legs still flew up and kicked Yuan Tianjie's chest fiercely. Yuan Tianjie roared and punched out immediately, smashing Yu Qi's entire body into pieces. Endless bloody mist drifted slowly in the air. The number one person in Mo Yuntian's army, Yu Qi, died in Yuan Tianjie's hands just like that. "Ha! You want to kill me? I'll kill you first! Ha 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 ha!" Amidst the bloody mist, Yuan Tianjie shouted, "Who else dares to come up and die?" His ferocious gaze swept across everyone's faces. Suddenly, he laughed strangely. "Anyone else who wants to be a hero will end up like Yu Qi, this traitor. Have you all seen it clearly?" At the side, Mo Tianji sighed softly. Chu Yang also sighed softly almost at the same time. GMO asked in surprise, "What's wrong? What's the meaning of this?" Chu Yang and Mo Tianji did not speak, but Gu Duxing, Xia Danqiong, Ao Xia Yun and the others all revealed thoughtful expressions. Yuan Tianjie killed Yu Qi, but did not absorb his soul power. Instead, he let it drift away. In the eyes of outsiders, Yu Qi's death was heroic and righteous, because he died for the sake of slaying the demon. But with his strength, he really could not cause such great damage to Yuan Tianjie. Even though Yuan Tianjie was already weakened to a certain extent, with Yu Qi's strength, he still could not do it. But in reality, Yu Qi did it miraculously. This was very strange, but Chu Yang, Mo Tianji and the others who were aware of this did not expose it. Yuan Tianjie's identity was exposed. Humans and demons walked different paths. Their standpoints were clear. Saying something about rebellion would be superfluous. But Yuan Tianjie just said it like that. Maybe Yu Qi was really disheartened and really rushed up with the idea of dying. He really did not want to live anymore. And Yuan Tianjie did it on purpose. That pause that should not have happened was actually caused by Yuan Tianjie himself. He deliberately let his own disciple injure himself, and then kill his own disciple. He deliberately created such a scene. But he gave up on Yu Qi's soul, so that he could save a little of his true spirit and enter the cycle of reincarnation and be reborn. He knew that by now, his disciple could not live anymore. But he used that last little bit of time to use his identity as a heavenly demon to create a little bit of glory for his disciple after death. A martyr who died for slaying the demon. This was enough to let Yu Qi's family stand proudly for a long time to come. Chu Yang sighed softly. Could it be that this inhumane heavenly demon actually also has such feelings? Could it be that demons also have feelings? Chu Yang sighed a little in his heart. Maybe the tragedy of Bookworm and the others was caused by Yuan Tianjie. But was Yuan Tianjie really the one who killed Yu Qi's family? Although Yuan Tianjie admitted it himself, Chu Yang did not think so. But Yu Qi was already dead. Whether it was true or not was no longer important. The important thing was, Yuan Tianjie still did something for this younger brother, even if it was so bitter and desperate. Chapter 23:31. But no matter what the truth was, with Yulinglong's death, everything dissipated. In front of them, there was only one demon-slaying warrior who had fallen because of slaying demons. On the other hand, it also meant that the real demon-slaying war had been ignited and erupted. Do it! Mo Tianji shouted and gave the order decisively. In an instant, a strong wind blew. Zi Xieching, Brother Tiger, Tribulation's godly soul, Chu Lur, Mo Layer and the rest all retreated. Only Chu Yang and Tribulation were left. Mo Qingwu stood half a shoulder behind Chu Yang. She was the only woman who had stayed behind. She stood there quietly. Forcing out Yuan Tianjie's true body was only the first goal of the established strategy. It was only the beginning, and the real highlight was yet to come. After all, killing Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun in front of everyone and killing a heavenly demon were two completely different things. If he killed the celestial emperor of a world, no matter what the reason, motive, or original intention was, he would still face endless trouble and investigation. Even if Mo Yun Tian's local strength couldn't do anything to them, then, the combined revenge from Di's level was enough to make them completely scared out of their wits. Since it was someone who could kill Yuan Tianjie, then it was possible for him to kill them too. Under such thinking, Chu Yang and the rest definitely couldn't coexist with Di's descendants, unless one side was completely dead. But now that Yuan Tianjie had revealed his heavenly demon true body, the fact that he was a heavenly demon was already known by many people. To Mo Tianjie and the rest, this was too advantageous. It meant that they didn't need to have any scruples anymore. The name of this battle had already changed from the destruction of a heavenly emperor to a demon-slaying event, to a heroic feat. If there were still people who wanted to make use of this matter to target Chu Yang and the rest, there was no need for Chu Yang and the rest to fight back. They would probably have been eliminated by the crowd first. However, at this point, the situation of the battle was very different from before. Yuan Tianming's real body had appeared, so he naturally did not have any scruples in doing things. Moreover, his battle strength had greatly recovered, so he was bound to be more difficult to deal with than before. Ordinary human wave tactics were hardly effective against him, and might even have a negative impact. Therefore, everyone except Chu Yang and Tribulation retreated, leaving only Chu Yang and the others to encircle and annihilate the flying demon. Zi Xieching and the rest knew that Chu Yang, Mo Qingwu, Mo Tianji and the rest were a natural and perfect formation that did not need to be deliberately set up. If they forced themselves to stay here, not only would they not be of help, they would also affect the normal operation of the formation. Therefore, Zi Xieching and the rest retreated and started a massacre on the heavenly fiend horde that had surged out again. As much as possible, they left empty space for Chu Yang and the others to use for the decisive battle. They must not allow anyone to interfere with this battle, and they must prevent anyone from providing assistance to Yuan Tianjie. In midair, Mu Tsunglan and Iluowe were almost at the end of their battle. Iluowe, who was gradually losing her strength, also finally revealed her true form as a heavenly fiend. If not, it would be difficult for her to deal with Mu Tsunglan's desperate attacks. Below, the four guards, Zixieqing, Mo Lei, her brother Hu, Chu Luer, and the rest attacked the heavenly fiends that had emerged from Yuan Tianming's boundary. These people vaguely formed a second encirclement with tribulation as the core. Other than preventing the heavenly fiend horde from assisting Yuan Tianming, they also had the intention of stopping Yuan Tianming from escaping after he broke through tribulation's encirclement. Tribulation's spirit had just taken a direct hit from Yuan Tianming's explosion and almost lost the ability to fight again. If not for his special physique, his primordial body would have long collapsed and turned into ashes. However, he could only turn into a cloud of gray smoke now, hovering above the battlefield. All the soul energy and spirit bodies of the dead heavenly fiend horde were all absorbed by him. While completely eliminating future troubles, he was also recovering from his injuries and strengthening himself at the same time. In the past, it was only the heavenly fiends who absorbed the souls of the human race. Now that the tables had turned, it was the other party who absorbed the soul energy that dissipated after his death. Tribulation's spirit's injuries were gradually getting better, but when it came to taking the initiative to attack, he was still unable to do so. The generals under Yu Qi's command were all stunned when they saw Yu Qi's tragic death and saw so many heavenly fiends suddenly appearing. Suddenly, someone shouted, "What are you waiting for? Still the undying heavenly fiends! Everyone, charge over!" Everyone shouted and surrounded them from all directions. Even the experts on Mu Tsunglan's side, together with the soldiers on Yu Qi's side, formed a third encirclement intentionally or unintentionally. The crowd turned into a huge iron bucket-like encirclement, surrounding all the heavenly fiends inside. No matter how many personal grudges and grievances they had before, when facing the heavenly fiends, everyone cast aside their former grudges and stood together against a common enemy. In battle, even if they met their old rivals who they had fought to the death with before, at most they would just laugh awkwardly and say a few harsh words. However, they would still cooperate if they needed to cooperate. No one would indulge the heavenly fiends because of personal grudges. Wang Laosan, you better fucking remember this. Today, I saved your life, and there will be a day when I will save your life. Heavens! Damn it! Fuck, didn't you just happen to save my life? I will definitely save your life. After this, I will still fight with you tomorrow. I will not rest until you die. Fuck, do you think I will be afraid of you? Qin Wu, you bastard, I will settle the score with you tomorrow for killing my nephew. You want to settle the score with me today? I don't have the time. Let's kill the heavenly fiends first. As for our matters, we will talk about it later. Fuck, how can we be afraid of revenge when we are still alive? Let's make a deal. The second day after we kill all the heavenly fiends will be the time to settle our grudges. Wang Er, you treacherous bastard who doesn't get up early if there are no benefits. You actually know how to save people today. Fuck off, so many heavenly fiends won't be able to shut your stinky mouth. If you have the guts, just you wait. Let's see if I don't set up a trap to kill you one day. The two armies almost merged into each other in an extremely short period of time. There was no grudge between them at all. We don't care about the battle in the sky, but none of these heavenly fiends on the ground can escape. This was the common understanding of everyone. Yuan Tianjie looked at the battlefield below with an extremely complicated gaze. He watched as his heavenly fiend subordinates slowly dwindled and disappeared like bubbles in the sea. He watched with his own eyes as his capable subordinates, who were also saints, were instantly drowned by a large group of experts after revealing their heavenly fiends' true forms. Some people directly used their own bodies as weapons. They gave up on their skillful martial arts moves and used the most barbaric and unskillful method to hold the heavenly fiends tightly. However, they didn't self-destruct because they had more people on their side. If they self-destructed, not only would they hurt the enemy, they would also hurt themselves. Instead, they laughed wildly and allowed their comrades to beat themselves and the immobile heavenly fiends into minced meat. The first tribulation Sword Master had already set up the battle formation of the Sword Master of the world. He kept accumulating his own strength, preparing for a thunderous attack. The time to kill with one strike had arrived. Amo Tianji carefully looked at Yuan Tianjia's expression and said indifferently, "Lord Flying Demon, do you see it? This is the Heavenly Imperial Court. You want to obtain it for all eternity, but it is a place that you are destined to never be able to obtain. It doesn't matter how many grudges we have against each other, none of us will cower in the face of celestial demons and devils like you. None of us will remember any personal grudges. Not to mention that you have been the Heavenly Emperor for 1,000,000 years, not to mention that you haven't done anything good. Even if you have done millions or tens of millions of good deeds for Mo Yutian, when your identity is exposed, you will be attacked by everyone. This is not being ungrateful, but it is determined by the nature of you heavenly fiends. Those who are not of our race will be killed." Mo Tianji's voice was very calm, but the words he said were like the sharpest blades, ruthlessly stabbing into Yuan Tianjia's heart. The symbol on Yuan Tianji's forehead flickered with a dense black qi, and he said indifferently, "My clan has never thought of taking you humans for our own use. What we want from the beginning is only this space, this place, that's all." He said indifferently, "Everything else is not important. For example, it really doesn't matter how you humans treat us. When the time comes, just kill all of us. It really doesn't matter. If that is the case, then why were you still sad just now?" Mo Tianji said indifferently, "If that is the case, why didn't you just let Yu Lai's soul be destroyed? If that is the case, why did you not hesitate to hurt yourself to give him the title of a hero after death? Sacrificing yourself for others doesn't seem to be the style of heavenly fiends. Is this not important?" Yuan Tianjia suddenly trembled all over, as if these words had caused an inexplicable pain hidden in his heart. He raised his head and screamed, "Damn it, who are you? I will kill you, I will definitely kill you." Chu Yang stepped out from the crowd and said indifferently, "Yuan Tianjia, allow me to introduce myself here. I'm Chu Yang, the Chu Yang who killed your son, Yuan Shetu." Haha, I've always felt that the name Yuan Shetu was a little strange. It turns out that your original intention of naming him was to show that your son and this world were completely different paths from each other. Now I didn't let you down and sent him to the netherworld early. Don't you feel very gratified and self-aware? So it is you. Yuan Tianjia turned his head and stared at Chu Yang. So you are Chu Yang. Although his voice was still indifferent, it gave people the feeling that he was forcefully suppressing his anger. It was very real. Chu Yang looked at Yuan Tianjia and said, "Even I did not expect that your father would all die in my hands in the end. I wonder if you have this foresight? You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."